Hello and welcome to Harry Potter and the Rewind Reviews. It's time, Chris. It's time to get to the real dregs. What's this shit? This is Harry Potter and the Deathly fucking Bollocks. Who cares? Part 1. What happened? What happened here, Chris?
Well, the same thing that's happened with all the others. I think so let's launch right in. Well, actually, first of all, but did you queue up at midnight? I want to ask that. I don't know why. I've not got a story. I just want to know. Did you queue up at midnight for the final book?
No. I picked up a copy the day of. I went to the shop. There were stacks of them in every supermarket and shop. There was no need to wait up at midnight. I literally just woke up the next morning and toddled down to fucking like Sainsbury's or something, and like, you know, just a supermarket brand in the UK. They just had a big pile of them. Like, I just don't understand. The midnight thing, never understood it, because you could just literally pick it up the next morning. They never were short of copies, ever. It's not like it ever sold out. What happened? Why did you do this, people?
Well, I did do it, but I have a reason for the midnight screening that will make you go, the midnight queuing that will make you go, yeah, okay, I understand why you did in that instance.
I assume we're talking about queuing up for the book, not for the film, because definitely.
Oh yeah, for the book. Yeah.
I mean, the film. Jesus, I had to basically be dragged to see this movie at the cinemas. I did, but I was not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I saw this one in the cinema. Like we discussed last week, I didn't see Half-Blood Prince, but I saw this one. I only remember because basically we were going on holiday the next day at 4 a.m. So I literally did have to queue up at midnight, otherwise I wasn't going to have a copy of the book before we went away.
That's fair. No, that's a pass. That's fine.
So, yeah, but I do remember, it was, because I wasn't that worried about spoilers, I do remember a good friend of mine was being a right little twat and going, I think he was saying Ron dies. He was like, Ron dies, I know what happens, Ron dies, because there were loads of fake spoilers on the internet. It's like, Ron dies, and I just turned to like the last page of the book and just put it under his nose, knowing that Ron didn't die. And he was like, oh, okay, I don't know what happens, because he'd just been full of this, I know what happens, bollocks. But anyway, yeah. Right, let's launch into it then with these films. I think the thing is, Dan, to get straight to it, I think the reason, I know you did it slightly, you know, for comedic purposes, yes. But the reason there's a vibe of, what are we on that, is because basically the problem is the issues I have with this film are all the issues we have with the other films, and I think it's worse. I've got more. Well, I've got more because I think
now it's a problem of execution. Now they're being executed badly on top of, because before we had rough storytelling topped up with good filmmakers at least doing something interesting with the filmmaking side of things to somewhat cover over those cracks. But I don't know what fucking happened at this point, if David Yates got like donked on the head and just decided, I'm gonna fucking make a terrible movie, like physically speaking. I don't know what happened. I still can't figure this out. It's like editing choices like, why are Harry and Hermione naked in the shot they don't need to be naked in? Fucking weird, you absolute psycho. They're children. Like, there's so many choices in this movie that are just awful, dreadful choices that were clearly the choice of the filmmakers. And I can lay a lot of this at Steve Klove's feet, as we have done on the previous ones, because it does have all the hallmarks of a Steve Klove script. Here's a thing we haven't told you about that means nothing to you. Cool. You know, there's a lot of that, but also just on a filmmaking perspective, it's just like dreadfully put together. I don't want to mess this movie is, but I think part of that's the editing too. So I don't know who edited these movies, but this one's not edited well either. Oh man, I don't know where we even start with this one, but I think this one goes beyond the writing of the scripts. Personally.
I want to start with the writing thing though, because for me, and to be fair, I think this is a filmmaking thing in general. As we've talked about, there's such a fear of truly going right. We're adapting a massive book. We have to do some adapting here. There's such a fear of that in these movies that they are the worst for it. Because for me, there's one glaring one at the beginning where I'm like, oh, the fix for this is so easy. They have that weird-ass scene where they come in and they dump a load of exposition on us when they're coming in to collect Harry. Remus and Tonks are now married and have some exciting news. Bill Weasley is introduced, because we've never met Bill before. And in my head, I'm going...
we haven't.
What? Huh? No, I know we haven't. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's madness. And so here's a little one before I do that big one. Same thing. The Minister of Magic, Bill Nighy, does a brilliant performance, but is it sure? I can never say his name.
Scrimger.
Scrimger. Why does it need to be? We've never met Scrimger. It doesn't actually need to be Scrimger. You could have that still be Fudge. For the purposes of the films, that could still be Fudge, and then we're not having to introduce the audience to a new character who dies off screen minutes later, right? So there's that. But so that's a little example. A bigger example, I genuinely think the movie would be better for this. Instead of having to, because I'm like, they're introducing Bill like this? Well, we've not met him before. I guess it needs to be Bill because it's Bill's wedding and then Bill at Shell Cottage. The answer is literally staring you in the face. Have the balls to go, we're adapting a movie here. We haven't covered Bill Weasley. I know what would make sense for the film universe. Have it be Remus and Tonks' wedding. It can still be at the Burrow. We don't have to introduce a character for the purpose of then getting them married. The audience is invested in the marriage because we've already met Remus and Tonks before. Lupin and Tonks before. So the audience are a little bit more invested. The characters are more invested. We don't have to waste time. Well, they barely waste time setting up Bill, but still. And then, not only that, it adds way more weight to part 2. We get to see them with the baby and a family. We get to see them interacting at Shell Cottage, and then their deaths have way more weight to them because we've seen them together with. Huh? Sorry,
they die.
Yeah. Spoilers for part 2 for anyone watching along.
Chris, I haven't seen part. We've not watched it yet. It's so upsetting. Is it a good death? Is it a death that has lots of pathos and drama?
Well, it would have a bit more if it was their wedding and them at Shell Cottage.
It's a new character I'm playing, Chris. It's called Guy Who Hasn't Read the Harry Potter books and is just watching these movies for the first time. So wait, so they die, huh? And who kills them? Someone good? Do we see it? Is it on screen?
Who knows? It's off screen. To be fair, it's off screen in the book. But anyway, look. My point is, and this is my point. The reason I'm so hung up on this because for me, it's a really good example of what they're too afraid to do, which is change things because it would make more sense for the movie universe for a whole host of reasons if that wedding was Lupin and Tonks. But it's just hard to believe no one in the room is saying it and having that conversation, and it feels like the reason they're not is because the books are these precious things, and if it's a new minister in the book, it needs to be a new minister for the film. If it's Bill and Fleur for the book, it has to be Bill and Fleur in the film. Like all of these things, if Aberforth with the mirror, well, it has to be that because it was that in the books. All of these things, it's like no, just be a bit braver. Like it's so funny as a kid, you're like, oh, well, they're just not as good as the books. But then as an adult, you go, well, the reason for that is they need to be a bit braver. Because I absolutely think...
It's fragments. You know what it is? It's someone took a really large mirror, and instead of cutting out a smaller mirror from that mirror, they shattered it, and then took a little piece from every section of the mirror to form a smaller mirror. And at a certain point, you go, well, that's all horrible, jagged, messy bits that don't fit together anymore. You could have just sliced a clean square mirror out of the bigger mirror, but instead you've tried to hodgepodge a bit of all of the mirror together out of some sort of slavish love for the big mirror. Like you wanted to honour what it was. But then now what you've created is a mess. Like, and that's a great analogy because the biggest example of that in this fucking movie is the mirror. We have a shot of Harry looking at a fragment of glass, mirror, whatever it is, because you don't know if you're just watching the fucking movies, because it was never set up in anything prior, and he's looking at it, and then we see, I think, one other shot of him looking at it, and then it just saves the day. Does it?
Which... Again, like, if it was, Lupin could go, here's, if that mirror belonged to Lupin and you have Lupin send Dobby or whatever, like, it just infuriates me.
No, there's a better solution. It's Malfoy Manor. Dobby and Malfoy Manor linked. Like, he's gone back, he's been monitoring it because he knows the place inside and out. Like, just any excuse. The Order of the Phoenix has had Dobby monitoring the goings on at Malfoy Manor. Boom.
Mate, you don't even need to do that. Technically, in the movies, they've done none of this free elf bollocks. So in the movies, Dobby went to work at Hogwarts, they've dragged him back. Yeah, you're right. They've dragged him back or something because we haven't seen Dobby, I don't think, since, have we? So
No.
yeah, they drag him back. Whatever. Do you agree? I need to know I'm not going insane. Do you agree with me that Lupin and Tonks getting married would make more sense for the movie
100%,
universe they
100%.
created? Okay,
because those are characters we care about. This is the problem. Yeah. This is they're starting to feel like video games where like you're walking through the world and like random NPCs keep talking to you and you're like, I don't need your exposition right now. The wedding when he's like just Elphias Doge and Aunt Marge or whatever. No, she's not Aunt Marge. Oh god, what's Ron's aunt called? Fuck, Aunt Marge is his aunt.
I can't remember.
Ron's aunt. Oh, it's
Madge?
Aunt something.
Meryl?
Oh. No, that's not it. Ron's aunt. Muriel. There you go. Yeah, Muriel. So Aunt Muriel just being there and Elphias Doge being there, and I'm just like, why? Why? What do we learn in that scene? We have Harry be like, oh, I don't think I really knew him after all. We could do that in any other scene in this movie, with any other characters we know and care about. How come we can't have a moment of Harry confiding in Ron or Hermione that fear that after all he doesn't feel like he knows? Even maybe do it after Ron leaves. Have Harry turn to Hermione and be like, look, I know how you and Ron must be feeling. I feel lost as well. I feel like Dumbledore could have given me more to go on, but I'm worried I didn't know him at all. Like, have him say it then, as almost a defense to the Ron thing. You can get the same exposition out, but and add more character stuff to this goddamn movie.
And it's same with Mundungus Fletcher. Have it be anyone else that or have it just be Creature. If you've had to introduce Creature, Creature sold the Creature sold the necklace to Umbridge. Like it's just maddening the amount of it's this way in the books, like, but you're 7 movies in now and you've adapted and you've made changes, so you can't. It's just that is what's so frustrating by this point. It's not even, it is both poorly adapted from book to film, but also doesn't make sense in the way they've adapted it as a sequel to flipping 6 other movies. Like, yeah. And because here's another. To be fair, this one doesn't really break the plot, but it creates an inconsistency. If you're gonna do the cool idea from the book about the world being so mistrusting that when they all meet up, they have to ask questions to clarify that they're who they say they are. Don't only do it with Kingsley and Lupin, because, who gives it? No one's questioning Tonks, no one's questioning Mr. Weasley. Like, so either don't do it or have it consistent, because my favourite thing about it as well, I'm just ranting here, but the question Lupin asks, the amount of times in these 2 films, it's like, you don't need to, why do that? So, as he does in the book, Lupin says to him, what was the creature sitting in my desk when we first met? And he says a Grindelwald, as he does in the book. Yeah. But we didn't see that. That wasn't in the films. Why is the question not a question relevant to the 6 films that we've just seen? Why wasn't it? What was the creature from my first Defense Against a Dark Arts lesson? A boggart. And then the audience go, oh yeah, it was a boggart. We saw that. And they feel a bit nostalgic and feel something for the film series that they're watching. But if you just nick it from the book...
No, feelings, Chris, no. Understanding character motivations, no. Plot. I love a bit of plot. Give me some more plot. Complicate the plot. Let's make it really complicated, Chris. Because
I'm sorry.
Characters don't matter, mate. Characters don't matter. Feelings don't matter. We move on. It's fine. Let's tell you stuff about them as if it matters. Oh, Tonks and Lupin have some news out. We're skipping. Moving on. It doesn't matter. We've done it. There's the thing from the book. Let's carry on, everyone.
I just don't understand. Cloves, Yates, whoever. I don't understand. And again, I know it's a minute example, but if you're building this to be the final movie of a movie series, I don't understand why no one was in the room going, would it not make more sense if the question they asked was relevant to the films instead of something we didn't see?
That is it in a nutshell, isn't it? It's just getting more stuff
that's why I'm
from
so
the
frustrated
books.
by it.
It's getting more stuff in from the books. He talks about the Grindylow in the book. We'll borrow that line of dialogue. And it's funny, because we can trace this right back to the very first episode of this podcast we did. Not the very first episode of Rewind Reviews, the very first episode of the Harry Potter ones. When we talked about the dialogue having this weird, unnecessarily uncanny valley Frankenstein thing where they take lines from the book, but do them slightly differently or slightly wrong for no obvious reason. Like, they just meddle them around. There's one line in particular that I'm going to have a little rant about later in this, and it's a tiny thing, but to me it makes a lot of difference.
Mate, my biggest thing, and I've been waiting for this rant, and I'm not going to have it this week. Next week is the example I have been just angry about for years. There is one coming up in the next part, which is just to me so egregious.
Hey guys,
and I honestly, I have been ready to
Patreon.com/nothingbutstatic UK. For as little as $1 a month, you can hear whatever the hell Chris is talking about right now.
And you know what will annoy? And if you watch the film, because I know what you like, Dan. Now, a little part of you, whether you can switch it off or not, a little part of your brain is gonna. You're basically, if Dan's got 10 little Dans in his brain, Dan is now going to put on part 2, and one of those little men, it's going to be like, little Dan number 7, yeah, your entire job for this movie is to work out what line Chris is talking about. And little Dan number 7 gets out his notepad and he's like, okay, cool. If you work it out, Dan, please don't just go, I think I know what it is, but Chris rant, because I have to rant about it. So right. I've been waiting 8 episodes.
I'm excited. We can do my one from this movie if you'd like.
Yeah, do one from you. Yeah, go.
So I'm going to read you a little passage from the book. I've got it marked and everything. I had it ready. I don't know, said Ron. Sometimes I've thought, when I've been a bit hacked off, that he was having a laugh or he just wanted to make things more difficult. But I don't think so. Not anymore. He knew what he was doing when he gave me the Deluminator, didn't he? Ron's ears turned bright red and he became engrossed in a tuft of grass at his feet, which he prodded with his toe. He must have known I'd run out on you. No, Harry corrected him. He must have known you'd always want to come back. Great line, right? Would you like to hear the moment? Would you like to hear the movie equivalent to that line, Chris?
Yeah, go on.
I think he knew at some point I'd need to find my way back, and she'd lead me.
Really? Because in the movie prior to this, he was checking that she wasn't with Harry. Oh God! It just changes all of the nuance, doesn't it? It's just so like just the nuance and the beauty of the line. And as always, J.K. Rowling done some shit since that questionable, but you can't deny the beauty of that writing. And here's
the thing, right? Someone's probably going to say in the comments, or might be thinking, listening to this, well, wait a minute, Dan, that bit you read out took ages. That took a minute, right? The line is quicker and snappier now, but that doesn't stop it from being shortened to he knew what he was doing when he gave me the Deluminator, didn't he? He must have known I'd run out on you. No, Harry corrects him. He must have known you'd always want to come back. There you go. Same line done in a tiny bit longer, maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Does the same job. Better. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Again, endemic of a bit wider problem with these movies. It's almost like he read the Wikipedia for the scene rather than for the book rather than reading the book, because so much of the nuance is lost. And again, it's a lack of understanding of what the scene is trying to say. Ron, in that moment, as a character, feels bad that he walked out on Harry. And he feels guilty that he must have had something in his character that Dumbledore saw in him that thought that guy's going to walk out on Harry. Right? And he feels awful, knowing that not only is he the sort of person who would do that, but he's the sort of person Dumbledore would know would do that. Right? That's awful. Oh, God, I'm a shitty person. And it's so obvious that I'm shitty. This guy saw it in me. And Harry, being glass half full in that moment, goes, no. He knew that even if you had doubts, you'd want to return to us. You'd always want to do the right thing in the end. That's the message to take away. That's Ron feeling low and Harry perking him up. The line, as it ends up in the film, he knew I'd need to find my way back. That's Ron already having worked that out, not Harry telling him it, but also not really, because he's making it about Hermione instead of about himself. Like, it's just a complete misunderstanding of what the characters is. And you could say, okay, fine. So in the movie, they've made it about something else. They're using that line to sort of reestablish his feelings for Hermione. But no, because what Ron is saying there is that Dumbledore assumed that Hermione would lead him back, which, one, makes no sense, as Chris has already pointed out. But two, doesn't tell us anything about how Ron actually feels about Hermione. It's rough. Maybe if you wanted to do it that way, I think the answer is instead of saying "and she'd lead me," like I would rephrase it as something like, I think he knew that that I'd want to come back for her, or something like that. Then I still don't agree with that, because I think that makes Ron seem like he's only there for Hermione and not to help Harry. But at least then it's a very clear character motivation. It's not just Dumbledore kind of knew I had the hots for Hermione, I guess, which is what they kind of imply. I don't know. It's a bad line that misinterprets and garbles a thing from the book when it doesn't need to, because the line in the book could easily be condensed to that. Don't do it if you're not going to do it correctly. Please, take it out. Don't put it in the movie. I'm okay with that line not being in the movie too, by the way. That's fine also. Maybe make that choice.
It's just a poor translation, isn't it? I got a question. I've got a big arcing question, but I'll ask this specific one first. Yes. Because I don't think this happens in the book, but correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Does in the book, that escape, the Seven Potters, is so exciting and thrilling? Is it me, or does it not need to go into Muggle traffic? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you could keep it in the sky and it still be thrilling. Like, because we waste quite a bit of time not quite a bit of time, like 30 seconds or whatever, but I just think it doesn't need that for me. Visually, it's good, but maybe I'm being harsh on it, because actually visually it adds something. Mm-hmm. But I was just a bit like, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the side of, like, I kind of get, it's like with Harry and the Dragon. They took it out of the arena to give it something different. And even Harry with Buckbeak, when he gets on Buckbeak in the third movie and it flies around the whole grounds, which is not what happens in the book. He just sort of goes up and does a loop-de-loop and comes back around. I'm okay with him just flying out over the river and through the grounds, because, it's a visual medium. I'm happy to have some excitement that isn't just we're being chased in the middle of a black nothingness with clouds. I'm okay with, like, varying up the environment. I might have chose to maybe make it them dodging around rooftops instead of in the middle of of Muggle traffic where they'd easily be spotted. But the logic in these movies seems to always be, Muggles never notice anything because they're stupid. In the books, the explanation is often, we use magic to sort of like, Muggle repel. It's a spell that they deliberately. It's so funny actually. In the book, Hermione always does 3 specific spells whenever she is putting the protection around them. And I can't remember the incantation, but it's like Muggle Repellio or something like that. It's the one they leave out every single time when they see them doing that spell in this film, sorry. And I just think it's really weird, because it's the one thing about these movies that's been really consistent, which is, in the book, there's a very, very serious through line of, like, the reason Muggles don't see this is because we use magic. They don't look at it. It's like a Doctor Who perception filter. In the very first book, Harry says that the leaky cauldron, he watches the people walking past it, and their eyes seem to go from something on the one side to the record store on the other side. I always remember that it's a record store, because I always find that really interesting because of the time it's set. It goes across from one to the other. So, like, we're setting up this idea that there's magic that just specifically sort of repels the attention of Muggles. They often describe Muggles going into, like, towards Hogwarts, and then suddenly remembering they have to. If anyone's heading towards Hogwarts that's a Muggle, they suddenly remember they've left the stove on at home and leave. Like, it's just that sort of thing. Yeah, sometimes it's played for laughs, sometimes it's played seriously. But it's always set up that way to be that. But the consistent through line in the movies is always just they're dumb. They never notice nothing. It's so weird. Why can't it just be magic? You have magic. There's no reason to change that. It's a simpler explanation. You can have your bike landing in the middle of the cars and like zipping around. If you say, well, you know, we've got some sort of special magic spell on us so muggles won't see what we're up to tonight, you know, at the beginning. Why this? Like, it's so strange. You just create more problems. Can't it just be magic?
But yeah. Oh, even I guess even like, you know, something like, oh, you know, a notion of the war is getting so out of hand that it doesn't matter that they were seen because the ministry, you know, there's so much going on. Or
that's fine. I guess that's fine. But
I did like.
Yeah, I stand by that. Like, just in general, as a choice, it's so weird that they would do that in these movies. I've never understood that as a direction. Yeah. Anyway,
to pay it a compliment, and then I'll do I got a big question.
Yeah, I got a couple of big questions. We got some of the usual big questions, which are no longer relevant. So, like, you know, is there enough Wizard School in my Wizard School movie? I'll give you guys a little spoiler. In fact, we'll just do it now. No, there's no Wizard School in your Wizard School movie because it's not a Wizard School movie. So we'll cut that one out completely. And we'll just assume it's gone from next week for the same reason. But I've added, does this feel like a whole movie? I've added, does this animated sequence feel out of place? And then I've added, Chris, big tease. Is the woods section too long? Because every time I hear someone complain about this movie, they go on about, oh, it's just a lot of walking around the woods, which I don't think is a fair criticism personally, but I'm very curious to get your thoughts. So, little tease for the rest of this podcast, guys, that's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. So,
can we make it, because this was going to be my question, I know it fits into that one, can we make it, is the wood sequence too long, / is the film in general boring?
Okay, yes, great. Let's do that.
That gets a lot of criticism. But to pay it a compliment, Dan, I'm gonna. Although the logic is weird with the photos, I do like that we see Hermione wiping her parents' memory. That was quite a nice touch. I think that opening sequence of everyone, well, they can't do anything with Ron apart from just have him just stare. And to be honest with you, you're so distracted in that moment with Ron because you're like, oh, Burrow's back then. Fine. Really was truly no point burning that down, was there? Because they didn't do anything with it in the last film. It's just back in this one. All right, then. Cool. But other than Ron, who just has no choice but to stare, and them cutting that brilliant moment with Dudley I talked about last week. I don't know if you watched that clip. But I
didn't.
Oh, you should. It's great. I honestly think it's such a lovely moment of acting from Daniel Radcliffe. It's quite a small moment, but it's great. For those that didn't hear last week, there's a deleted scene where Dudley shakes Harry's hand and says goodbye to him. And it's just as he walks off, Harry goes, "See you later, Big D," and it just really makes me smile. I do like that even though the logic blew Jess's mind, as it does every time we watch this movie, I like that we see the sacrifice Hermione is making. I like, I thought that was good.
I don't like it. No, it's the same problem. The physical thing is happening that's happened in the book. None of the emotional weight. No understanding of what she's sacrificing there. They don't elaborate enough. I think the weight that you're feeling when you watch that is because you know that what she's doing is her parents are about to basically become two other people living in Australia. Like, she's not just erasing them of her memory, because that would be pointless, because there's... Okay, here's the thing. The plan, based on what's in the movie, no book knowledge, you would assume her plan is that she's erased her parents' memories of herself and evidence that she lived there, so that they'd be safe from Voldemort. But here's the thing. There's a record of her, and where she lived, and who her parents are. Whether they remember her or not, they'll be found... and used in the same way Luna is later on to manipulate and control. If they're living in the same house, based on what's in this movie, they just don't remember Hermione anymore, then Voldemort still shows up on their doorstep. And he's like, "Hey, Harry Potter, do you want to come out the woodwork? I got Hermione's parents, and I'm gonna kill them. I got Avada Kedavra in the bag. Just point them at one. Just come find me, Harry Potter. I'm at Lucius Malfoy. I'm at Malfoy Manor, number 1 Malfoy Lane. Come find me." And then Harry just comes. That's to save them. Like that's the problem. So in the book, and I don't push his glasses up nose. In the book, the sacrifice isn't just that she's made them forget her. She's given them new lives in Australia, and it ends when she explains it. It ends with her saying, I think I've given them enough, happy memories of a life without me that even if I don't make it out of this, they'll be all right. And it becomes clear
really
that the reason she's done that is that they won't feel sad that their daughter is about to potentially die. So it puts the emphasis not just on their safety, but that she set them up in a way where they don't know they have a daughter. And that means that, emotionally speaking, if she doesn't make it out of this, they'll still be okay. The movie unsuccessfully communicates almost all of that. She erases their memory in the most, it's just a scene in the movie. She obviously looks very sad. Emma Watson doing a great performance, and there's some interesting camera shots, I suppose, and it's set to dramatic music at the start of the movie, but it is just absolutely worthless on its own. Worthless. It is the movie trying desperately to make me feel something when it has failed to set up any of it.
Because also as well, actually, they had because the other really effective thing about it in the book is it's used in a moment of to basically it's Ron. I think Ron says to Hermione, "Tell him what you've done," because it's used in a moment where Harry's basically threatening to go off on his own, and they're doing the whole "you really don't understand. We are going with you," as we keep saying. Hermione's done this. Look what we've sort of given up for you.
Yes.
So.
And they have that scene in this movie, Chris.
Yeah,
if
exactly,
that scene wasn't in the
if,
movie, I'd go fair enough. But it fucking is. And it's Ron that goes after Harry, not Hermione.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Why isn't Hermione with Ron in that moment? And why doesn't Hermione tell Harry what she's done? And we get some of that nuance there instead of the exchange between Will and Harry, between Harry and Ron.
Yeah, because then the opening scene, retrospectively, becomes extremely powerful. And I'm okay with that. If you want to show me something, and I'm a bit ambiguous about it, and I'm like, they're communicating some sad feelings here, but I don't really understand the context of this. But the movie then gives me that context later, and it hits me then, because we have Hermione say that line from the book, which is, they don't know they have a daughter. I think they'll be happy. If I don't make it back, the weight of that in dialogue gives the visual we've already gotten a huge amount more weight and can really hit. I think that could be a very powerful moment. But you never know what any fucking character's motivation is in this movie. I don't want to jump around too much, but Malfoy Manor, right? They show up at Malfoy Manor, they got Harry, and they throw him in front of, he's all fucked up, but he's obviously Harry Potter, and Ron is obviously Ron, and Hermione's obviously Hermione, and everyone there knows what those people look like. They've all met them all previously. I don't know why anyone is confused, but that's a problem in the book too, so fuck it, whatever. Literally, Lucius fought these kids 2 books ago. One of them lived with one of these children as a rat. Why does no one know that these are these kids? Anyway, fuck it, doesn't matter. Whatever. Malfoy gets dragged out, and they throw him in front of Harry, and they're like, is it him? And he's all like, I don't know. The movie just is not capable of communicating what his motivation is there. Is he scared of Voldemort? Is he having doubts about this and he doesn't want to throw Harry under the bus? What's Malfoy's deal in that moment, right? I don't know. I can't track that character's emotional journey here.
That's how it seems, because speaking of that exact thing, that first scene where Lucius Malfoy and his wife essentially come across as terrified of Voldemort and clearly fearful, and he's answering about his wand and he's like, dragon, and they're so scared of him. I'm like, this doesn't fit. They in the books they weren't. They eventually got there as it got ramped up.
Right, but in the movies that's not what's happened. In the movies, they've been happy servants to Voldemort. We're on the bad guys team, and in that you're right. In the book, there is a certain amount of understanding that over time their situation gets worse and worse because of what happens in Phoenix. Because Lucius lets Voldemort down, their family have been basically punished by Voldemort on purpose for letting Harry and his friends destroy the prophecy. Yeah. So you understand when you get to this book the weight of why they're in that situation. But because none of that is here, that they've still got the scene where they're scared, you're just going, why? Just because he's a scary dude that might kill you at any minute? I guess, maybe. But how do I track any of these characters' emotional states at any time? Fucking how? How? The movie gives me nothing. Oh, it's so bad, Chris. It's so bad.
Let's rip a Band-Aid off and then do some questions, right?
Yep.
Let's rip the Band-Aid
Yep.
labelled The Dance.
I'd love to talk about
What-
the dance, Chris.
What are your feelings?
So, I think there's a core idea in there that's actually extraordinarily good, but it's executed horribly. And I'm going to go back and blame David Yates on this one. I think the premise that in that moment, a song comes on, and Harry, just desperate for any moment of levity in their situation, just does something silly, invites her for a dance, and they do a silly dance. He spins around and they have the laugh and they're smiling, and it's like, for one brief second, the world isn't ending around them. And then the song finishes, reality sinks back in, the smiles drop, and they leave. But David Yates is a fucking useless twat. And he wanted it to have romantic tension too. So he added lots of staring into each other's eyes and almost kiss moments, which fucking ruin it, top to bottom. Now,
but not even for me enough of them to make that premise work, because in the Steve Knowles J.K. Rowling interview, she fucking loves that moment, by the way, and he talks about how, and it's when you hear it, you're like, oh fucking, none of this comes across in the screen. He talks about how his thinking was, Ron is obsessed with the radio. He's always checking it for the dead. So when Ron leaves, the radio becomes, a representation of Ron. The song comes on, and they dance, and there is this moment of, oh God, are they going to? Because in their situation, and then Rowling goes, anyone would. And the notion of the idea is, in that situation where you can't see any way out of this, and you're there, maybe there is that moment of, is something going to happen? Because, that's just kind of real to life. But even that idea, and I don't like that. In Rowling's but obviously, you can't go back on that, and then you're going to get Ron and Hermione together and all of that stuff. Even that idea, to me, because I hear that interview before I watch the scene, and whilst there's a bit of that in there, there isn't even really enough of that in there to be executing that idea. It's just,
that's insane.
It's just this,
because again, the idea of two friends doing something sort of a bit silly and inappropriate in the moment tonally, just so one can cheer up the other in a really dark moment, and then the darkness seeping back in because their situation is that bleak. I think that's wonderful as a concept. And I was assuming that was what was in the script, because I look at the way it's shot, the way it's directed, it's got all this romantic stuff in it. And both Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson have both said they were directed to play that moment with romantic tension. So I assumed that Yates infected the scene with that. But based on what you've just said, that was the intention from Cloves too. Fuck.
I think, or maybe that was the thing Rowling liked. I'd have to rewatch the interview, but they certainly, both of them talk about the notion of Harry and Hermione in that moment as being one that they liked. But for me, it's not executing any version of it right, because like you say, it's trying to do both. It's fighting against each other. To be honest with you, in my opinion, Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe's performance looks like they are literally fighting what they're being told to do. And that's not an awkward thing about them, because later on they have to kiss, and that scene is,
horrendous.
They are committing to that at the very least. The idea is appalling. The direction is appalling. They as performers are committing to it.
Why?
But it feels like it's just the directing, the writing. In the dance, for me, it's not doing any one thing bold and clear enough to be paying it off. But as you said, it's such a shame, because the notion of silliness in the middle of darkness, and then that darkness still ebbing in once the music has faded away, especially if you really find a way to play up and make the Ron radio aspect of it work, then that as a notion would have made an excellent moment. But it's just confused in execution. It's so weird. And yeah, it is awkward and odd to watch. And I think we're saying no to the dance. We're on the
yeah,
side.
We're saying no to the dance
no
based
dance.
on its execution, because I think there is a world in which the dance is fine and good and works. And hell, God, you know, a different lifetime where I became a successful writer and then someone dumped like a Harry Potter TV show on my doorstep and I had power to do this, I would be tempted to include the dance in a TV adaptation of this, but do it correctly, because I do think the idea in its core is actually lovely. And also, for me, Harry and Hermione's relationship is probably the least characterized in the books, and I like the idea that he represents like a brotherly figure to her, that when she's sad will do something silly to cheer her up. That's adorable.
Yeah,
That's
the films you could make an argument, sorry to cut you off a bit there, you could make an argument that the films have actually done Harry and Hermione in general better than the books, because they have moments where she calls him her best friend. He says, admittedly that it's in the books, him saying, she's like a sister to me, but I feel like they have done more to show Harry and Hermione as brothers and sisters in the film than they actually did do in the books. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but if someone were to present me with that argument, I would go, yeah, I can already understand where you're going to be coming from with this and see your point.
Yeah. No.
Them, take for example, them laughing. I don't think we talked about it, but them, the Hermione saying that Victor Crumb is more of a physical being in Goblet of Fire, and them both laughing, and it's such a friend of, there's no hint of jealousy from Harry. It's an awkward giggle of, what did I just say? Oh, stop it. Like, best friend friendship. And, a moment like that, I don't believe, it's certainly not in the Goblet of Fire, and I don't think it's in, the other books.
No, I think you're exactly right, and I think another great moment last week, I am the chosen one, and then she hits him on the head with a paper, and they have a giggle.
Yeah.
You're right, because in the book, they explicitly, actually, I think it's Goblet, when he's fallen out with Ron, there's a section where it literally says, Harry found that his life was a lot, things were a lot less fun when Hermione Granger is your best friend. You spend a lot of time in the library, it's that kind of, they play it that way. And I think that's a shame. I think the books missed a trick there, and I think the movies did a little bit capitalize on that, a tiny bit, but again, execution wonky every time. Like, it's so close. It's so close to being something. And that's why in a world where you're doing this again, this adaptation, and you've, every capable writer in the world got hit by a bus or something on the same day, and it's left on my door. Like, I'm really, really genuinely considering keeping the dance, but just executing it better. Because I think there's something brilliant somewhere in there. So I'm very torn on it. I think it's better than I remember, because I remember feeling all the negative parts about it. But when I analysed it this time, I was like, no, there's an idea at the core of that that's really good. It's just execute wonky, but so much of it is. Let's go back to the boring question. That we got distracted. Is the movie boring? I don't know. I think it moves around a lot more than people give it credit for, because I hear people describe it as they walk around in the woods for 2 hours. And I looked at the timestamps. They're in the woods at about an hour and 4 minutes. Then they're at about an hour and 20 odd minutes. They go to Godric's Hollow. Then they're back in the woods for another 5-10 minutes. And then they're off to Xenophilius Lovegood. They're not in the woods that long. Is it just that the woods section is so boring that people think it's the majority of the movie? I don't know. Weird. I don't get it. There are many criticisms of this film that I think are valid. I don't know if boring is one of them. We open with the Seven Hat Potters sequence, which is flawed in both the book and the film, I think, because as a plan it's insane and stupid. Why not give Harry Polyjuice Potion to look like a rando instead of giving 7 of them Polyjuice Potion to look like Harry?
Oh yeah, I'd never thought of that, but you're right.
or I don't want to really fuck this up, but Muggle transport. Give him his invisibility cloak. Get him on the tube. There's no way the Death Eaters are watching the tube. Mate. Am I being crazy?
Not even the Death Eaters.
Am I out of my mind?
Not even the Death Eaters could get a space on the tube.
Yeah, that's true. There's 70 versions of fast travel in these books and movies, from port keys to flu powder or whatever. You're telling me none of those work? Okay, you can't make a legal port key. Okay, make an illegal one then. What are we doing here? This is fucking insane. this plan is terrible. But anyway, it's terrible. It's
Because
terrible.
Dumbledore makes an illegal portkey at the end of Order of the Phoenix to send Harry back from the Ministry of Magic. Like...
Oh, you didn't register it with the Ministry of Magic. Well, we're the good guys. We got to play by the rules. We can't do that. Oh, anyway, but forgetting that for a second. Look, so we open with the pretty exciting. I think it's a reasonably exciting sequence. Them trying to escape the Seven Potters. That's fine, and it's kind of fun and it's goofy because they all turn into Harry, and we get all the jokes regarding that, which are reasonably fun. Fleur being like, "Oh no, don't look at me, I'm hideous." That's good. I enjoy that. Fred saying that he wouldn't want to get stuck as a scrawny, specky git forever. That's all fun and fine, and there's some action after it. Bit of Voldemort showing up.
Yeah, don't they keep Fred and George's "we look the same" as well, which is quite fun.
Yes, they both go, "We're identical," which is fun. Yeah, that's all top. That's fine. That's all good. We get the car chase. That's pretty good. We have a bit of loss. We lose Hedwig. That's sad. Then we're at the wedding, and then there's like chaos that follows the wedding and a fight in a fucking cafe, which is all from the book, but like it's there. Then we're off in the woods for 20 minutes of dour stuff because that's when they're doing the.
No, we're at Grimmauld Place before the woods. Then
shit. Yeah, sorry, we're at Grimmauld Place. Then we go and invade the Ministry, which, by the way, insane plan, but that's true also in the book. The plans in these books and movies are usually pretty bad. But anyway, I kind of think that in the book it's played as these stupid teenagers, half thought this through and then get really stuck and then get really lucky getting out. But in the film, it's played like they had an amazing plan, and Harry ruins it by being gung-ho, but whatever.
I think she does always try. Like, I've just had the Order of the Phoenix where, like, even to the point where they enter from the visitor's entry and the badges say Harry Potter rescue mission. Like, so that is insane. But then you kind of go, well, Voldemort's Death Eaters have gone and entered. Presumably the reason the Ministry is empty is because they've emptied it. And, you can usually fansplain it, but there's certainly no time to fansplain in the films. But yeah, carry on. So we do the Ministry.
Yes, so we get the Ministry, the heist, which is, I think, reasonably exciting. That's a reasonably, there's a lot going on in those scenes. There's lots of weird magical hijinks. Ron as Reg Catamore is always fun. That's all fine. Then we escape and we're in the woods. And we're in the woods for like 20 minutes of just dour, everyone getting more and more miserable. And it is 20 minutes of a 2 hour, 20-minute movie. So that's, it's a chunk. But that part I could see somebody describing as boring. I didn't feel so. I thought it was very atmosphere building. I actually think that's probably one of the better sections of the movie for me. We'll talk about it, but the montage of them just constantly traveling, Ron doing the radio, all that stuff, that's all pretty good, in my opinion. Because you really do feel the struggle, the oppression. So when Ron flips out, you know why. And then we're at Godric's Hollow, and then we get back, and then it's the sword. The whole hijinks with the sword, and then we're off to Xenophilius Slugoods, and then we're being caught by snatchers. Like, it's just, the movie doesn't fucking stop. Like, you can...
Yeah, I don't think it's...
There are many things you can criticize about this movie, but boring, I don't think so. There's a lot going on. Maybe too much.
No, I don't. I'd agree. Like, the none of the forest scenes are that long. All of the forest scenes are attempting to do something. Mm-hmm. There nearly is always a piece of action or a purpose to the scenes. Whether executed well is, as you say, another matter. Mm-hmm. But I would agree with you. I don't think it's boring at all. But Dan, we had another question linked to this. So, not boring. Is it a complete film?
Yeah, so this is, so does it feel like half a movie? I talked a lot on that last subject, so I'm going to ask you that question, Chris. Do you think this is feels like half a movie or a full movie? Did they find a good place to splice it, in your opinion? What do you think?
I think it definitely feels like half a movie. I think it is always going to, because inherently, when you do this, it's going to feel like that. When fundamentally... the last book is Harry's journey and completing and finding the Horcruxes and destroying them and going through a war. Like, I don't think you can do much to not make it feel like that. I also don't think you can particularly fit it all into one movie. You probably could adapt it into one movie if you're being braver than the filmmakers are willing to be.
Can I make a suggestion for that? I know we said last week we wouldn't do any more like our version of what this would be, but I think this might help make the point. What if, Chris, they don't get Godric Gryffindor's sword? Ron just reappears, and it's a parallel of the scene where the Snatchers nearly find Hermione, and she's just on the other side of her protective spell, but it's Ron. And she's mad, and she doesn't know whether to pull him in or not. And then we have her choose to bring him in, right? So there was no Gryffindor sword, no silver doe, none of that, yeah? Then, they get to Malfoy Manor. Gryffindor's sword is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, they escape Malfoy Manor, they've got the sword that can do it, right? And they get there, and Harry's like, hey, Voldemort's about to go get the Deathly Hallow, the Death Stick, the Elder Wand, right? And they're like, what are you going to do? You're going to go get it? He's like, nah, we're going to stay here. We're going to destroy this Horcrux. Ron, grab the sword. And we do the Horcrux destruction scene there, right? We wrap up Harry's arc of being torn between Dumbledore's plan of Hallows of Horcruxes over Hallows. We give that an actual ending. And we give Ron's arc in the movie of feeling inferior to Harry and feeling like Harry didn't know he's doing stuff an ending at the same time as Voldemort gets his victory and finds the Elder Wand. So we've got threat for the next movie, and we've wrapped up two pretty big plots. So that kind of makes this movie about destroying the locket.
Yeah, I think that would work. I don't think this movie does the Hallows v Horcruxes thing as well as the books do. But it doesn't
do it at all. It basically ignores that. For those who are unfamiliar, in the book, Harry becomes obsessed with the idea of the Hallows, because that seems like, you get those, you're the Master of Death. He's thinking, well, I'm facing death pretty soon, because at some point I've got to go for the last piece of Voldemort's soul, which isn't in a Hallow but is contained within that body of his. So I go destroy these Hallows so that when he gets killed next, he dies properly, and then I'm gonna have to go do that bit. So there's this whole vibe of that, and then the easy escape seems, if I get these Hallows, I'll be Master of Death. That's an advantage I wouldn't mind having in my death fight with Voldemort. He becomes obsessed with that, but it's almost like a test to see if he's worthy, because Dumbledore in his youth got obsessed with the Hallows, and it led him down a dark path. And Harry, at the end of the book, chooses to follow Dumbledore's plan, to show trust in Dumbledore, and to put his focus on his chase for the Horcruxes over the Hallows. And it's a big moment. It's an important moment. And I think this movie needed that through line, because then it would have felt more like a complete movie, especially if you end it the way I suggested.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And that all links to his doubts about Dumbledore. Fixed your movie, Mr. Cloves.
And make it Lupin and Tonks' wedding at the beginning.
Right. Be bolder. Be fucking bolder. There's too much going on in this fucking movie, man.
And I think so that's that's a definite
also, do we need Godric's Hollow? Do we need Godric's Hollow?
No, I don't think so. Not in this movie at all. There's a nice, the character stuff with him looking at the graves and stuff is good. And him smashing through to his own bedroom is good. But again, in a world of ruthless cuts, you can get rid of Godric's Hollow. Do you think because that answers the question, is there a better way to make this movie feel like it has an ending? Do you think there's a world where you could have done this book in one movie?
No, maybe not. Maybe not.
I think there's just too much. Well, not without getting rid of some big sequences. I think you could get rid of Godric's Hollow. If we're being honest, if you know probably when finishing up Half-Blood Prince whether you're about to do Deathly Hallows and make it 2, so you probably maybe don't have the locket be a fake, and it's an actual, they end that movie with a Horcrux, and then you don't have to do the Ministry either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think this is the thing where JK wrote them into a shitty situation here, because they've got in of the Avengers movies, they got to slowly introduce all the MacGuffins, all the stones, right, across them, and then it's the 7 things are important. I think I'm partially stealing this point from Nando v Movie, so I think talked about this once. But in Harry Potter, it's all the Horcruxes are in the last movie. That's
you
a lot.
remember
That's a
going
lot
into-
to chase down, right?
Do you remember going into that book going, how are they getting 7 of these things? Like, they really, it's
Well,
really funny.
I guess
like, 'cause you're
5,
right,
two are gone already. I guess, but yeah, it's still the same. Yeah.
yeah, like that's well, they don't know even the one that's because the ring in the book. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like that's definitely inherited from the book. To answer your question about, because obviously that's the kind of, we've done our version. I think the movie does end in an interesting place, because essentially it's The Empire Strikes Back. The good guys have just witnessed a death. I mean, a death of a character we've only seen in one other film and haven't seen for a while.
It's
I think
the
that death
saddest thing. I feel so much for Dobby. Oh, do you? Do you? When's the last time you saw Dobby? When you thought he was annoying in 2? This movie has emotionally manipulated you, and you bought it like a fucking chump. That's what happened. It's a terrible scene, and a terrible death, and a piece of shit writing.
But the idea of
I've
it
been on
ending
screen for 2 seconds, but you're my friend, Harry Potter. Fuck off.
the notion of it, I think, is fine. Like,
Have a guess if you thought I liked that scene.
I mean, it's clear, Dan. It's clear. But the notion of it. The notion of it, I think, is fine as an ending point. End on a downbeat. But it does definitely. This film feels like you just need to watch the second part right away, because it does feel like half a movie. Like we said, it's not boring. I think it's quite, exciting in places.
It's got pace, and it's constantly jumping to different places, and there's different kinds of hijinks throughout the movie. Like it's never tonally. It's like it doesn't get stuck in a rut like that. Because I think even the book could be guilty of a huge chunk of time being stuck in the forest and feeling like it's stuck in a rut, which is to build your frustration while all the character stuff happens. The book spends a lot of time with them just going around hopelessly attempting to figure out where the next Horcrux is, not having their plan to really make that point, so that when Ron says to Harry, "You don't fucking know what you're doing," you as the reader are going, "Yeah, you don't fucking know what you're doing, dude. Like, I want you to find a Horcrux already."
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So the book actually spends a lot more time in the woods than this film does, and this film snips a lot of it out and really condenses it to make it like a section, but not. I don't think obtrusively so. I think it's a weird complaint. I've never understood it. I've literally never got it. It's just there's so much going on in this movie. How could you think that? I don't get it.
For me, the problem with this film is, well, there's many problems, but one of the biggest problems of this film, and I haven't quite decided on the ranking yet, but it doesn't do any decent character work. None of the character work is paid off, explored, correct. Like, we've talked about simple decisions they could make to address some of that, but all of the character work just feels slightly off. And that, I didn't like that. Well, I rank Half-Blood currently, rank Half-Blood Prince last. Mm-hmm. But at least it's attempting to do character work. At least the love triangle stuff is an attempt at that. There's no character stuff in this movie. There's a little Ron and Hermione.
I think there's tons. It's just all muddled nonsense. There's no clear character through lines. There's no arc. The only character in this movie that has a clear arc that you go, I know exactly how you're feeling in this moment, and now you're here, is Ron. Everyone else, I haven't got a fucking clue what they're thinking and feeling. I don't understand. The movie isn't clear. It's too interested in using all of its dialogue to expunge really, sometimes often extraneous, details. It's too interested
Hermione,
in
maybe.
covering the stuff from the book.
Hermione, maybe.
No, because we just talked about this. They do the parents thing, and then they don't pay it off. What's her arc through this?
Yeah, that element.
A bit torn between
Hermione...
Harry and Ron because Ron wants to go, I guess. For 5 minutes, she feels that way.
I think you feel the weight of Ron leaving a bit, with her, before they disappear, and he really won't be able to find them.
But in that moment, sure. But across the movie, this is my point. Any scene in isolation, you can go, oh, I think the character's feeling this right now. But there's no tracking that across the actual film. The scene, it's what we said last week, I think. The scene only cares about what's happening in that moment. What's happening in that scene.
that's a big headline complaint of these movies in general. Like they often only care about what's happening there. Let's talk about the Ron stuff then, because the Ron, slowly growing resentful, and the effect the locket has on him, that's been translated to screen quite well, I think. Actually, like you feel the same emotions with that you feel in the book, I think.
I'd say so. I do think. Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's condensed quite a bit, and it's a little too Ron, take off the locket. Like, you wouldn't be talking this way without it. I like that in the book they make it clear these are his real thoughts. It's just he'd maybe have a little bit more self-control to not say them without the locket. The locket's like manipulating him a little. Although, so Voldemort's been split in 7 pieces, right? Is this the dumbest piece of Voldemort? This one? Is this shit? Is this the shittest part of his soul that's just like because the other one manipulated Ginny and Harry really well. The one in the diary, this one's just like I'm evil, like I do bad things. You feel bad feelings now. And then when Ron opens it, it's like, Ron, your parents don't love you, and your best friends are screwing. Are you manipulated? Ron's like, no, have a fucking sword. And that's
and let's talk.
As a criticism, that's also valid in the book, by the way. But like, it's like the least subtle piece of Voldemort ended up in this bit of soul. That's what happened.
But why? And it just feels like, oh, people are gonna be like a Harry and Hermione gonna kiss, so let's make them kiss. But why do they need to be naked? It's so weird, especially because they're not naked at the beginning. Like they're in clothes at the beginning of that bit. Why do they then need to be naked when they kiss?
I'm deeply uncomfortable about that choice. Deeply uncomfortable about that
so
choice. Every
weird.
single time. It's unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. At first I went, oh, it looks kind of CGI. So, you know what? Fine. You didn't put the actors through that at the very least. It's weird and fucking pervy choice, I think, because I just don't. As a director, I've made the choice that they should be naked in this scene. Why? Have them kiss. That's what it needs to communicate, that Ron is scared they're together. Have them kiss. That's fine. That's basically what happens in the book. It makes sense. I understand the locket in a moment of desperation trying to like manipulate Ron that way. But fucking why naked? Someone made that. It's not an accident. They didn't show up on the set naked and they went, I guess we're rolling. Like, they chose to make those actors take their clothes off because, oh yes, Chris, that was them. It wasn't like a weird CGI thing where they CGI'd away the clothes. They had Harry just wearing jeans, and they had Daniel Radcliffe just wearing jeans, and Emma Watson wearing jeans and a strapless bra, and they made them kiss. And I just think they were children at that point. They can't have. But she was 17, 18 at that point, I guess, around this time. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. Icky as fuck. Don't do it. There's no point. It doesn't improve your movie. It's a weird choice, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
Especially regardless of how old the actors were, because I suspect the actors were all 18 by this point. But in the film, they come of age at 17. So in the film, they're under 18. The characters are under 18. Like, I hope the actors weren't, but the characters at least are. That's just madness, man.
It's
so weird.
I was infuriated by it. Absolutely infuriated by it. So unnecessary. Absolute shit. Bad movie. Bad movie. The Ron stuff, yeah. So I think like Voldemort having his derpiest piece of soul in this locket aside, this soul is the one that the other souls don't invite to parties. This is the soul that gets left out. They call him like Voldy, and he just sort of like rolls around going, ah.
Thing is, though, my memory is that at least the soul's doing something. I'm pretty sure the soul, the Horcrux that they destroy, that have Ron and Hermione destroy in the next film, pretty sure that's just a shit ton of water. But anyway, we'll get there when we get there.
Maybe those two were friends. The other ones all hung out and left those two out of their like games and parties. Anyway, I couldn't get it out of my head that it was so bad at manipulating them that I was just like, it was just the least subtle thing I've ever seen. Like, you ask that bit of soul to sneak through a forest and it, like, runs. Like, and just stomping and breaking every twig. Like, that's that soul. Anyway.
Here's another one, man. I don't think, and we'll have to check in on this next week, with that sequence as well, I don't think the next film includes Snape casting the Patronus and it being Snape that's helped them get the sword. So if you're watching these movies, where's that fucking Patronus and sword coming from?
Oh, God. Oh, because I think you could come out of this movie, right? Here's the thing. If you take the Patronus out of it and you just have Harry, like, he needs a break, he wanders off into the woods, maybe ill-advisedly, and he stumbles across the sword, you could make the case that it's the Gryffindor sword returning to Harry again. I think if you're a movie viewer, not a book reader, you would just see it that way. They even re-establish it in this movie. Scrim just says the sword would appear to any worthy Gryffindor. Right? So, cool. I take the dough out. I don't need the dough. It makes...
No, I'm wrong. We see the dough again with the.
Okay,
fine,
it's not.
We don't see Snape cast.
The dough has other significance, but I'm assuming the next movie does fuck all with that too, because the movie never pays off anything that it sets up. So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, I don't think you needed the dough if you were gonna be not if the next movie doesn't do that, which sounds like it does, but like even if it didn't, I'd just say Harry can just stumble across the sword and you can just go, oh, it appears to any worthy Gryffindor. Cool. Tick. I don't know. Yeah. It's fine. I wouldn't have questioned it as a viewer of the films. It appeared out of a hat last time. Appeared in a lake this time. I don't know. Just appears when it needs him. When he needs it. At the right moment. Magic. There's magic built into this universe. You can explain all this shit. Like, you never need to worry about this stuff. Because you could just always go as magic. That's why this is so crazy that these are so badly written, because so much of the inconsistencies with a line of dialogue could be just absolutely smoothed over in a way that you just go, oh, cool, fun magic stuff. Great. Anyway, back to quickly back to Ron to finish the point. I think he's got the best characterization in this. I think it's the clearest problem. It's done really overtly, like it's so on the nose. Like Ron's like staring at Harry and Hermione as they're like talking, and it's like they flick a switch, like it's time for Ron. Like there's a point about an hour into the movie, because that's the other problem. It's not embedded into the rest of the movie. It's just in that woods section. What I really wish they'd done is had a moment or two prior, like at the wedding maybe, where Harry and Hermione dance and Ron gives them a little bit of a look or something, just so that we know it's there already. Because it literally, the movie gets to the woods, they flick a switch, and Ron's pissed off now. That's the only problem.
I don't mind that, because in a world where you haven't got time for much nuance, I don't mind that it kind of being it's the locket.
But they don't do anything with the wedding, so why not use that moment to set up that?
Well, yeah, no, it's better, but I'm saying it's not as egregious to me as some of the other things we talked about. Like, it's better if you basically make the point that, this is something Ron is worried about. It's more nuanced, it's more character based. It's
one of the few character arcs that tracks across multiple scenes. I'll put it that way. But the problem is, it's multiple scenes from about the hour 4-minute mark till about the hour 50-minute mark, and everything before that and everything after that has nothing to do with it at all. It's properly sandwiched in the middle of this movie, and I think, again, my instinct is resolve that at the end of the movie, so it feels like it was the movie's plot.
I'll tell you what, actually, Voldemort's got a bit of an arc, doesn't he? Finds out about the wand throughout the movie, ends up taking the wand at the end of the movie. That's sort of embedded throughout.
Yeah, it's not a character arc though, is it? That's his plot. That's his story.
I know. I'm just trying to find compliments, Dan.
Oh, there are so few. I think. Also, the camera work. Fucking who forgot the tripods on half the shooting days for this? This is like the problem the James Bond movies sometimes have, where they're copying the popular movie of the time. Like when did Jason Bourne come out? When did Bourne come out? Let me just 1 second. What was the first Jason Bourne movie just called like Jason Bourne?
No, it's the Bourne Identity. It was a lot earlier than this, I think.
Wait 1 second. The Bourne Identity. Yeah, but okay, 2002. So Bourne Identity comes out in 2002, right? And like all the action movies and their dogs, all just shaky cam for all the action scenes. It became a real trend. Harry Potter just, showing up to the party in last year's fashion, just like, hey, this is what we're doing now, right? Like, no, we're already past this. You're trying to copy a trend and you're doing it about 8 years too late. Like, no. Stop. Bad Harry Potter movie. Awful. It's shot terribly. Yates should be scolded for his camera choices in this movie.
But it's also not a, take a shot, but Prisoner of Azkaban, and actually I would also argue Order of the Phoenix's tone and choices from a cinematography point of view go across the entire movie. The use of colour, the use of transition scenes in Azkaban is throughout the entire movie. The use of the Daily Prophet as a device is used throughout the entire movie in Order. The shaky cam thing, it's like battle scene, shaky cam. Like it's not very. It doesn't feel particularly embedded. It just feels like you say, it feels like a cool toy to use during the fight scenes, which doesn't help.
And it doesn't feel like it adds what they want it to add to them, because I feel like they want to be like, this is the gritty war movie. The camera's shaking because the world it's so real and gritty and whatever, and they're like running through the woods having like spells at them or whatever, and trees are exploding or whatever. But like, you've executed it in a way where it's just irritating to look at. Like it's not even been done well. Like there's an actual, as much as it was a trend that I was like not really into. Even at the time, like when the James Bond movies started copying it, I was like, oh, But the James Bond movies always do that. They always copy whatever the trendy thing is at the time. That's kind of been a long-standing tradition of James Bond movies. But it's not even there is a skill to executing that, I think. Well, like the Bourne Identity does utilize the shaky cam to give things a grounded feel. A handheld feel. It's a very specific look, but it's done in a way that where the shots are very carefully chosen still, even if it is shaky cam. And it feels like Yates didn't really understand that. He just thought the camera had to be shaking to give it that vibe. But I reckon when Greengrass sat down to direct Bourne Identity, I reckon every single one of those shaky cam shots was like meticulously chosen, so that when the camera is shaking, it's still framed well. Whereas this, it just feels like, right, kids, run, camera guy, run after them, film them as you run. And it's just like, what? What is this?
It's funny because
it's irritating to my eye.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because comparatively, that's the other thing about this movie. I'm not sure what choice it's making. Prisoner of Azkaban made the choice to be an art piece. Goblet of Fire makes the choice to be... Now, and by the way, I'm not saying these necessarily are executed successfully, but Goblet of Fire makes the choice to be a teenage rom-com, essentially. Order of the Phoenix makes the choice to be a character piece about Harry. Half-Blood Prince makes the choice to be a film that feels like you're watching it through 3D glasses, even though it's not 3D. Like, this one makes the choice, I know that's a joke about the muggy colours of it, by the way, but it's a choice. I don't like it, but it's a choice Half-Blood Prince makes. I'm not sure what choice this film is making, apart from, for some of the action fit scenes, they have shaky cam. Like, what is this film? Yeah, what's its choice? What's it about?
If I was guessing, it's like gritty war movie. I think he was going for, the world at war, everyone on the edge, everything on the brink, sort of like down in the dirt, Saving Private Ryan realism in a movie with magic.
There's some choices connected to that. There's the statue of the Muggles in the Ministry of Magic. Actually, a choice I love, showing us the train journey into Hogwarts and having Neville stand up and say he's not here.
Yeah, how Brilliant. Good is that? Because we hear about that in the book because they describe them kidnapping Luna off the train. So we get a sense of that in the book, but it's not like shown obviously because in the book it's all pretty much from Harry's perspective, with a few weird exceptions, but it doesn't matter. So that was a really good choice. I liked that a lot, and that gave us a real sense of the wider world.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point I was going to make. Like, there are moments like that where I think you're right. That probably is the choice, but inherently, You are adapting a book which has a moment where it slows down and tells the war from the perspective of 3 lost children that don't have a clue what they're doing and are literally stuck in the woods. So you got to choose what war movie you're making. Are you making that movie, or are you making the society is oppressed, everyone's getting attacked on trains movie? And those
also,
two things contradict with each other slightly.
Yeah, because if this is your war movie, then the next one has a thing in it called the Battle of Hogwarts. Like, wrong movie, dude. Like, pick a lane. Can't this be the oppressive, like, and I don't want to make the World War II analogy because I don't know, but like, there's bits in this movie where it's like, when they talk about the upcoming oppression of the Muggles, the Ministry, that's like, why don't you make this the Anne Frank movie? Not literally, but like that whole idea of being like, make it small and contained, and it's just them trying to stay out of the hands of the Snatchers and stuff, because it's just like the Gestapo are out there, and we just have to stay away from them. Like, and I don't literally mean that. Obviously, it's funny. I said I don't want to make the World War II comparison, and then did it anyway. But I'm an idiot. What do you want from me? But yeah, I think you want to make that movie. That's not a war movie, but it's a war adjacent movie, and that's probably better tonally for the story you were telling, right?
There are moments you can do that and embed that in that they choose not to. So, one, you can show more destruction and the wedding guests more in danger before they disapparate away. But two big ones. Instead of Grindelwald just cheerfully giving up Dumbledore, you can have that tortured out of him. And the other example, how about we don't have a lovely Christmas feeling when they first visit Godric's Hollow, which, given that this world is at war, seems to be all sort of jolly Christmas at a country village. Like, why not have that feel like dingy and dark and like, I think it's Christmas time, but the world is at war and even the Muggles can feel it.
How powerful would that be? Would it be? How powerful would I think it's Christmas? And then Harry be, Hermione says, I think it might be Christmas, and then someone like shuffles out of like a building, looks around them like all scared, because for those who don't know, because it's not really established in the film, the Dementors go kind of mad and they just sort of like cover the country. So there's like a weird mist and sadness that's spreading over all the people in England. Like it's all very even in the areas not directly being attacked by Voldemort and co. They're all kind of like miserable, because there's just Dementors floating all over the place. So why not have somebody like come out of a house? They think it's Christmas, and he like comes out and he's looking all shufty and he's sort of shiffly, and then he runs across and he goes into the house, and it's like, is it Christmas? These people don't seem too great. Like, they don't seem too jolly. Something's going on. Something not right here. And then you establish that. That's your tone. But you're right. It's inconsistent at all times, because as we've established, every scene only matters to itself and not to anything around.
Yeah, and there's probably other scenes where you could establish it further. Now, before to pay a compliment, I've got one. Rufus Hines. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name. We'll talk about the animated sequence because that's a question in a second. But the actual Luna Lovegood's dad and that performance of he's shifty and up to something and he doesn't want to do it, but he has done it and he's scared. That sequence is very well done. I think that's a good example where you do feel the tension of the world at war through this character, and he's having to do something that he doesn't agree with, but he doesn't have any choice. And I think it's partly in the performance of Rhys Ifans. Is that how you say his name?
Rhys Ifans. Yeah.
But that sequence is a good example of do more scenes like that. But did you like that sequence?
I did, because again, it shows like oppression, and it fits in with the themes of the movie, and especially because you get to see him. I mean, I wish we'd seen him more at the beginning, so that difference was more palpable. But there's just enough.
But
for it to
work
is.
Here. It is. Luna Lovegood is consistently executed very well throughout these movies. The line where she says, "Let's go, Daddy. Harry doesn't really want to talk to us. He's just too polite to say it." I will give Knowles credit for, and he talks a bit about this in the interview with J.K. Rowling as well. His view on Luna and really diving into Luna has no filter and will say whatever she wants and the blunt truths to people no matter what their reaction is going to be, is a really fun thing to dig into with Luna in the movies. And he does, I think, and I will pay him a compliment here, I think Steve Knowles writes Luna very well. And that scene is a good example of it.
But I mean, yeah, and he's taken it from the book. It's a big part of her, that her propensity for uncomfortable truths is a big part of her character in the book. But what he's done, I think, cleverly, and maybe he should have done with some of the other characters, is taken one of her dimensions and explored it specifically, so that even though she's only appearing every now and then, we've got a clear understanding of what her character is and does. Whereas other characters, he tries to fit in all the dimensions of the character, but can't, so they just come across weird and jumbled. We don't get too much of Xenophilius being the kooky crackpot at the beginning, the joyful kooky crackpot. So when he's the kooky crackpot that's scared because his daughter's been kidnapped, you're not really sure that he's even acting out of character, which is, I guess, could be a choice, could be deliberate to sort of throw you off the scent of the reveal. The reason he's acting weird is he's actually just told on Harry, which is fine again. But I mean, he doesn't even just say that he seeks the Deathly Hallows. He doesn't even explain that symbol exists to denote you are aware of them and in search of them, like many others. Which is an interesting character thing for him. Not just a plot piece of information, but he's one of those people, and it tells you something about what he does. He follows weird shit like that. He's a mini conspiracy theorist. There's just not enough. It's like a piece of his stuff, but not all of it. And that is the issue. With Luna, at least, it's consistent because it's just this one thing they stick with. But with him, they try to do all the dimensions and they don't have time. So it just comes across weird. Yeah.
So, speaking of the Hallows,
yes,
the animation, because it is a beautiful looking animation.
So good.
It's absolutely visually stunning. It's fantastic. I think we're all agreed on that. The story is given time to be told, as far as I can tell, pretty much verbatim. It's Emma Watson reads it. It's some of her best acting. She reads it beautifully. It's so lovingly crafted. So I guess the question you raised is, Dan, does it feel out of place in the movie, or does the fact that it's so good overshadow that?
I think it does. I'm gonna go ahead and be bold and say I think its quality overshadows its lack of, because the movie's weird and bitty and all over the place anyway. So, and the movie jumps around in tone. Like the heist at the Ministry is kind of goofy, and then then it's like we're in the woods and it's life and death and everyone's miserable. So the movie's tone bounces around anyway, through fault on the filmmaker's part. I would say it's to a fault it does that, but. If your movie's that bitty anyway, I don't know if I care about it being out of place when it's good, when the thing that it's out of place for is good. And I agree with you. I think it's one of the weirdly strongest parts of the movie. It's a really neat little sequence. I remember when I saw it in cinemas, how beautiful that animation looked on the big screen. It still looks great on my TV for sure, but
and actually, I think some of those, when they get, it's a good example of, whilst, in general, I don't appreciate a film that bounces around in tone. The tone and the visual storytelling of that scene is great. And in this movie, when they nail the tone, as they do, I would argue, because you're right, it's goofy in the Ministry of Magic.
Yes.
But it is entertaining. Like Sophie Thompson and Stefan Rothery are phenomenal in that sequence.
But shouldn't it feel like life or death? These teenagers are sneaking into the magic Pentagon. They're sneaking into the magic thing. Should there not be actual... do you think the tension is diluted by the goofy tone?
Yeah, it's a very deliberate choice, isn't it, to have him go off? And you could easily, again, just I know it's in the book, but you could take out Ron having to go off and fix some plumbing, especially when the fact that he's able to find them again doesn't really make sense. And because a good example of that is the eye. That's horrific. This character that we are meant to love has just died, and she's nicked his eye. And I don't think that is in there. You don't even realise that's what it is in that scene because it's so played for laughs that if someone's just watching that sequence, they're just thinking she's got an eye similar to Moody's, and that's what it is. Like, the horror of the sequence is lost, but it is entertaining. The bits at the end when she kisses Ron and he turns back into Ron, and then the real husband appears in his boxers and is just like, huh? Like, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think there's just... I don't know. I just think, like, it's tricky because the book does flick in tone because all of that comedy is there in the book. So it's hard for me to criticize the movie for trying to keep that tone in. But I just think as well, the book does understand, like, that those moments of levity are often framed as absurd on purpose. Like, I think we talked about it earlier. Actually, it's the Harry Potter rescue mission moment from Order of the Phoenix. So for those who don't know, when he's entering the Ministry, which has been cleared out for some reason, I don't think it's ever made clear why. He thinks Sirius is in there, and he's going in to rescue Sirius. And he gets into the entrance, and the entrance is like, state name and reason for visit. And he's like, Harry Potter, and I'm here to rescue Sirius Black, unless your Ministry can do it first. And it goes, ding, okay, and it brings him down, and then he gets a badge, a visitor's badge that says Harry Potter Rescue Mission, and it's so absurd and extremely funny at the same time in a really dark moment. But the characters aren't acknowledging the comedy. Harry doesn't care that it says Harry Potter Rescue Mission. He's just going in for serious, right? So in the movie, all the characters are all like mugging and goofing around when all this is happening, when actually maybe this should be considered quite a dangerous situation. I don't know if this is... Maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe if I watch it back now, I'll feel like they're all treating it very seriously. But my memory of it, my feeling as I was watching it, is that even the characters are kind of like winking at each other like, what? Isn't this silly? And that just... Yeah, that doesn't seem right. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading.
No, I think that's fair.
When Ron is kissing that lady and it like turns around like a comedy beat, like you could almost put in a laugh track when he like turns around and the guy's there in his boxers, it's like and like you cut to like Harry and like Hermione and they're both like, what a situation we're in. It really plays that way.
There's quite a bit of levity in the scene where she's being trialed, though, and the sheer horror of her being accused of stealing a wand and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a bit of it, but yeah, it is mostly played for laughs. But I laughed.
Even in that scene, there's levity in the book because there's a moment when Harry comes in as Runcorn and is like, we've all decided that your blood status is good and you're fine and you can just leave. And he lets a bunch of the people that they've got captured out. And then when they ask him why, he's just like, yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. There's excuse me. Again, the book balances. Basically, I think what this comes to is, I think just in execution, the book balances the comedy better than the film does, and it might be a lack of time and rushing through it. It might be just like a little bit of like there's too much going on and nothing gets enough time to have its tone properly set up.
I think it's the classic. It's the classic. What does this scene need to do or need to be, and it will just be that, and that's what we'll do, and that's right. I think there's so many overarching problems we've discovered as we do this with this series, and the scene needing to do what it does for the scene and blow the rest is a big one of them.
What's so funny is I would not have predicted that. Would you? Like going into this, that the problems would be that consistent across all the movies, that it's the same shit we're complaining about every week. I did not.
No, and because I also wouldn't have seen coming that sometimes they've been too faithful to the books. Yes. Like some scenes, I would not have thought I'd have said that was a problem. I'd have, as a kid, gone, oh, well, they've changed too much. No, from a reviewing it, from a film perspective, as movies, they have been too faithful to the books on a number of occasions.
Yeah, I think.
And for me,
I think the sentence I used a lot when I was like asked about why I didn't like these movies by people, because obviously these movies are beloved, so we're in the minority here. I get it, but like, as you know, over the years it's come up that I don't care for these films, and I've always been asked why, and my answer has always been the same: they make bad choices in what to keep and what not to keep from the books. And what that meant to me was just like they'd keep in irrelevant things and remove relevant things. But I still think that sentence is true, but for completely different reasons now than I did before. It's completely changed my perspective on what this is. It is about keeping too much in and being too slavish to the source material, for sure.
There is undeniably, and I suspect I can completely see, genuinely, if you are I could see a really young child that's not, watching the films for the nuance and isn't bothered about the fact that we've only just met Bill Weasley and then we're meant to care that they're getting married. I can see young children watching these instead of reading the books. I feel that they should, I think the books are a better experience, obviously, but I can see why you'd have love and nostalgia for these films. I really can, because even this one still looks beautiful. It still has that sort of Harry Potter sensibility to it, which the films have created. But I just,
it's oozing with a lot of that weird creativity that made those books good. Like, like, even the Seven Potters thing, which makes no sense, is a really creative idea for a sequence. Have all the characters look like the main character. We can make some jokes about that, and then we have a sad action scene where someone, where a main character kind of dies, and it's important. Or an important character, I should say, dies. It's taking a lot of things from the book that are good and reinterpreting them. So I guess that the good stuff is still there underneath. So I wouldn't blame someone for seeing that stuff before they see the problems, because the books are bursting with really good ideas, and the ideas are still there. And if they're executed in a pretty enough package, I could see people being distracted enough by the shiny thing to not pay attention to the detail. Certainly as children. So it also makes a lot of sense to me. But I've got a friend who's really a very astute sort of. He wants to be a filmmaker. Actually, he's just finished studying and he's looking to go into that stuff. And he loves these movies. And he was absolutely perplexed when I explained they didn't like them. And I told him some of the stuff that's not in the films and is in the films. And like we talked about the differences between the films and the books a little bit. And he was blown away by some of the stuff. Like he couldn't believe it when I described the scene where when Neville. His parents are in the ward, the ward at Christmas, and the mum hands him the sweet wrapper, and his grand's like, "Don't keep that," and he pockets it anyway. He was like, "Fuck!" I was like, "I know, right?" There's a lot of really good stuff, and it's just that like weird obliviousness to what you're missing out on. I guess the really good character work. So I don't know. I also understand why people would watch these and just see them as dumb, fun, weird, nonsensical sort of action movies about a weird wizard stuff. And I guess that is the problem as well. Like the world is so modeled anyway. Like I guess you just turn off your brain and don't really think about any of this stuff. It probably works okay. Do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. Well, like for example, Trace update. We said we'd talk about it. Yeah, inconsistent. Doesn't make a lot of sense when he references the trace, but you know what? The movies haven't explained what the trace is, have they? So you watch this movie and you just assume they're tracking him somehow. And it's just
because at no point in this movie do they say the thing they say in the book. Because what they say in the book is, the trace is how they knew about when you did magic the last time, and the here and there. They actually like directly say this is a thing that you've been doing wrong. Whereas in the movie, they just kind of went like, "Don't worry about it. It's a thing." They will use it as an excuse as to why we can't do certain things in this movie. We don't want Harry to escape in another way. We need to do the Seven Potters thing. So he has the trace. Oh, he wants to leave early, but he can't. He's got the trace. Which, by the way, fuck whoever wrote those two scenes. Well, I know who wrote those scenes, but fuck him. Harry says to Ron, like, I'm gonna go. Wedding is a dumb idea right now. I don't care. I don't care about this stupid wedding. Like, the Voldemort's out there. A scene later, Harry's with Ginny, and she's all like, I'm not sure about this wedding. A wedding's crazy, right? And Harry's like, Well, maybe that's why we should have weddings. Wait a minute, Harry. 2 seconds ago, you told Ron to go fuck himself. What do you mean?
But
oh, I'm sorry. The scene has changed. It's a new scene. Harry has different felts now.
Yeah, it's the scene doing what it needs to do for the scene.
This scene needs him to have a warm relationship with Ginny, so he's into marriage now.
Well,
also, again, weird choice to have him zip up her dress. Don't get it. Weird. Why can't they just be having a conversation?
Weird, but they do have more chemistry in that scene than any other scene in the film before, in my opinion.
Also true. Also true. Yes, agreed.
Like, it's weird, and Fred's or George's mourning is also odd. That's your sister. Weird. But more chemistry than the entirety of the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, that's true. I hate that that's true, but that is true. I think you're right. Like, the movie does enough hand-waving that you stop caring about details like that. I feel like if me and you had watched this movie first, or like maybe just after watching Chamber, you know, the one where it opens with him using Lumos and not being caught, we'd be like, but there's Trace! But the movie's done so much hand waving that I'm just like, yeah, okay, fine, movie, whatever. Like, continue to be dumb. I don't.
Well,
even
like
care.
you say, the movie, and I know we talked about it last week. Dan has ranted about this, but just to say again, the movie makes no effort to explain what the fuck the mirror is. Like, in a world where that's happening, the fact that they even mentioned the trace is like fair play.
Yeah,
but like you say,
talk about
it's just
the mirror. We do need to talk about the mirror.
Why have these weird decisions to be made to not give any context to the mirror, yet Bill needs to have been attacked by Greyback? Why? Like, I mean, I've made my feelings clear. It doesn't even need to be Bill. But certainly, why do we need dialogue about who he's been attacked by? Is that to make it more threatening? Again, I can't stress enough. If it was Lupin, that would have more weight.
It's honestly, it's why?
But
why are we wasting time doing this stuff?
Yeah,
I don't get it. The
and
mirror.
not
Let's talk about the
re-establishing
fucking mirror. Right. What is the audience
hold on,
supposed
just
to
quickly.
think?
No, just quickly. Not even do we waste time establishing he got attacked by Greyback. We don't even re-establish who Fleur is. I could completely understand someone coming away from this movie and then being told, "Oh no, she was in the Goblet of Fire," and being like,
there is like one throwaway line of dialogue where it's like, "Harry, you remember Fleur, right?" or something like that, and it's like, wait, dude.
That whole sequence, the exposition dump they have to do as those characters walk through the door is insanity. Just like, Bill, attacked by a werewolf, Fleur's here. Lupin, we've got some news. Moody, shut the fuck up, everyone. Like, Trace is bad. It's crazy. Anyway, the mirror, Dan. The mirror.
Can I read you some of the dialogue from that? I've got it here. It's great.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it's so good. Bill, true enough, owe it all to that werewolf by the name of Greyback. Hope to repay the favour one day. Fleur, you're still beautiful to me, William. Lupin, just remember, Fleur, once you're married, Bill takes the stakes on the raw side now. Tonks, my husband, the Joker. This is just like every line is just trying to tell us some information.
Yeah.
By the way, wait until you hear the news. Remus and Aya. All right. You'll have time for a cozy catch-up later, says Mad Eye. That's fucking bonkers.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I had to pause it and just turn to Jess and be like, well, I did that multiple times, actually, like, in the beginning of this movie, but I was really blown away. And then when they're back at the burrow with no explanation, anyway, the mirror, rant about the mirror, Dan.
Oh, the fucking mirror. Right, I just don't think, like, okay, I'll try and keep this as simple and short as possible, but I cannot tell you how incompetent it is to write a fucking movie where the solution to the escape, the characters, the plot of the movie is that they're trapped at the end of the movie and they need to escape. The solution to that is just, he fucking talks into a mirror and help comes. No explanation, no justification, no fucking nothing. Yeah, it's in the book, but guess what? You didn't set it up in a previous movie. So either fucking set it up here, you useless prick, or don't put it in your fucking movie. Find another solution to your problem. This half measure of, I guess people remember where the mirror's from, is insane. The assumed knowledge about this fucking mirror is mind-bending. Absolutely insane. You know what's even crazier? There's another mirror in this series of movies. There's the mirror of Erised. Could somebody be looking at that going, is that a fragment of the mirror of Erised? That's the only other mirror I can think of if I'm going back. Like, I would not blame someone for thinking back and trying to put this together and deciding maybe it's a piece of that somehow, and that, like, you know, what he most wants in the world is help, so help comes, the same way that what he most wanted in the world was the fucking Philosopher's Stone, and that was put in his pocket. Like, I could see somebody scrambling for an explanation and coming to that conclusion, which is insane. How do you have such an important piece of your movie, of the solution to the problem of how they escape, be so fucking underserved that it makes no sense whatsoever? You might as well just go, bloop, it's fixed. Like, put the words, they fixed it, on screen, and then they're just out of there. It's about as fucking lazy as that. Unfucking believable. Yeah. What a shambles of a scripting choice. If anyone else put out a fucking movie where the solution to the movie was just someone clicks their fingers and the problem is solved, you'd be fuming. How has anyone watched this movie and come out going, that was satisfying? It breaks my brain, Chris. I cannot understand. The fucking mirror can go fuck
because
itself.
It's not even, there's literally nothing. It's not even like the pieces of, you know, like the Maunderer stuff from the third movie, Barty Crouch from the fourth, you know, at least the pieces are there. At least there's been some attempt where you don't get the detail you need for the Marauders, but we literally said with Azkaban and Goblet, you could follow it. You could understand it. How anyone knows where that mirror, which as you say, solves the problem at the end, how anyone knows where that comes from is just mind-boggling. You might as well just have Dobby appear, because that's how it seems anyway. That's what it feels like happens. It is unbelievable. Whether you, you just have to not have the mirror. You just have to, like you say, if Dobby's just hanging around Malfoy Manor because he's spying on them, or he'd heard that they'd kidnapped Luna, you know, whatever. Like, it could be that. Like, if Dobby's at Hogwarts, we heard that I heard that Luna had been captured, so I came to investigate. You know, whatever.
Oh,
like,
Dobby's gone to the Order to try and see if he can help Harry Potter, and they're like, the only thing you've got elf magic. You know, you can get in and out of places we can't. Maybe do some spying for us.
Yeah.
Fine. Dobby's a spy for the Order now.
Can you imagine how much more powerful Dobby's death would be if Dobby throughout the movie has been looking after them?
It's just insane, because it's just... and here's the other thing. In the movie, they make a thing that's quite clever seem really dumb. And I don't know why you would make that choice. Elf magic in the book can get through wizard spells and stuff because wizards are arrogant. They don't consider elves a threat. They don't consider them when they make the charms that block things and escape things. And it's especially the other side, the dark side's ignorance to the potential power of lower, you know, in their minds, lower beings, you know, like house elves, that is their downfall, because they are constantly being thwarted, because elf magic is just different to wizard magic, and they've not included it, right? So it's hubris that brings them down. And this happens repeatedly across the books. Not just in this sequence where Dobby just gets in and out of the Malfoy Manor. In the movie, though,
it's a big, just to jump in with an example, it's a big part of Sirius's downfall, because his lack of appreciation for Creature gives Creature the ability to lie to Harry and work with the Malfoys, and yeah.
And it's how Regulus stole the locket. He used Creature because Voldemort didn't make any of the... he didn't make that spooky, weird puzzle box cave with the locket in it elf-proof. Creature was able to apparate out when a normal wizard could not apparate out. But in the movie, they're just like, you can apparate out of here? And he's just like, yes, I have elf magic. And what that comes across like to a non-book reader, I can only imagine, is like lazy writing. Just like, well, elf magic fixes it, I guess. Like, it just comes across like shitty writing. And what's actually amazing is the explanation is so fucking like good at establishing the villainous nature of the character of the villains. It's a thing that both explains the plot thing that's happening, but also characterizes our villains. And it would take a sentence to explain. Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
wizards don't often consider elf magic to be much of a threat, Harry Potter, sir. Fine. Tick. What is happening here? How are you getting this so wrong? I don't understand. It's like every choice is bad. Not like Chris, I'm at the edge. I don't. How many more of these do I have to do?
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. I hope the listeners understand the frustration of these movies.
You gotta hope, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Like,
yeah.
Fantastic Beasts is only its own thing. It's not trying to adapt things. It's not keeping things because they're in the original text. Yeah. And presumably it's not having to explain things.
Bad for different reasons.
Surely some of these things, at least, we've only got one more movie of.
Yeah, I hope so.
Dan, have we naturally done the questions, or are there any questions?
Well, let's have a quick look. I think we've got at least one major one to cover. What was the last one? It was... Is it? Oh,
I feel bad.
Oh no, we've covered. So does it work as a story on its own? No, I don't think so. I mean, The Mirror is a prime example. There's no there's no consistent through line. It doesn't know what it's about. So many things that just need the context of the books to make any sense of them whatsoever. No, it doesn't work at all. First movie, I think we can truly say that. I just don't think the plot of this just like flows properly at all. There's no real context given to Horcruxes or anything. The stuff that was not properly explained in the last movie is still not properly explained now. We get introduced to the Hallows, but not given any explanation of what their meaning is or their weight or whether they're something that anyone would want to collect. We don't have it explained that Voldemort doesn't know about the Hallows. He just knows about the Elder One through reputation. So we think maybe that Voldemort might be going after the Hallows. We don't establish that Harry might suspect his cloak is one. No, this movie is just like a bunch of senseless shit. Like they get a Horcrux, they destroy a Horcrux is the only thing that this movie is about, and they finish that plot about 2/3 away into the movie, and then it's just we're kidnapped and now we have to escape that. It's a senseless piece of shit. Can you see the seams of where things have been cut? Yeah, all over the fucking place. It's bad. How is magic portrayed? Poorly. We are full on gun ones now. The shootout in the fucking diner can go fuck itself.
The cafe, yeah.
The shootout in the woods can go fuck itself. No, and that's absolutely on David Yates. I think the seeds were set, sure, but it just feels like these fucking magicians, these wizards, know like one spell, 2 spells each. Yeah, they're either doing Stupefy or they're doing what's the other one? Expelliarmus, or they're doing, if they're the bad guys, they're doing Avada Kedavra. I also take issue with, and this can sound weird, costume choices. Why do all of the villain characters have to look so obviously villainous? Like, I'm not really one for profiling, but if they all look like their names might be Snivelly McEvilpants, I don't know why these guys were secret for so long. Like, all of the villains look like the most villainous people on the planet. They're just all black and greasy and like fucking wearing timber and just wardrobe. I don't understand how
that has actually you saying that has reminded me. You ready, Dan? I've got a compliment. I've got a compliment to pay it.
Okay.
Yeah, in and amongst your tirade. What I loved about that is you weren't even getting my opinion. You were just reading the question and going, yeah, shit. Like, next question, yep, also shit. Like,
well, I was gonna say because I thought I was gonna go through all 3 really quickly and then go, do you have thoughts on any of those that are different? Like, but because we'd covered them, I was trying to do it quick, but then I just got on a rant again because I'm angry about the movie. So yeah, feel free to throw in your thoughts on any of those things.
No, I agree with what you said. But the compliment, the Snatchers are done well, and in particular, the scene where the Snatchers can sense and smell Hermione's perfume, and they're both standing either side of the protective barriers is brilliant. Like, that's a fantastic scene, and I think the Snatchers, even though they don't do this in dialogue, the performances maybe some of the dialogue, and I'm not giving the dialogue enough credit, the Snatchers don't feel like Death Eaters. They feel like shitty people taking advantage. That's what they are in the books, and that's what they feel like in the films. And that scene with Hermione and the protective smell in particular is brilliant. Like, it's really well done.
Yeah, I think so. For me, like that section, the wood section, which is often cited as the problem with this movie, might be its best section because it builds up the one consistent character arc in the movie, which is Ron. We have a ton of atmosphere building and tension building as it goes on. The choice to do like the montage where they're traveling different places and you've got it to cut with like those weird mumblings from Ron's radio. And like you get the moment where there's certain names keep cropping up on the radio, but they're only just audible, or I'm deaf. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're completely audible. But I picked out names. I was like, oh, is it about that person? Is it about that person? And I felt Ron's like anxiety listening to that. You know, maybe expecting to hear his own family's names come up in the news. They because they made it so inaudible that even I was trying to pick out names and information from it and feeling anxiety about that is a genius choice. I think the mood and tone set in that section is brilliant. It's not consistent throughout the movie, but it's very well done.
Because it's there is a consistent theme in our compliments here, which is anything related to, well, apart from the animation, because that's just, visually spectacular, but anything related to a dour, we're in the midst of war and how is it affecting the people, anything related to that is done well. If they'd have just carried that through the whole movie, I think it would have, and also that's just so logical as a movie choice before a movie where you have a big fuck off battle. That is a logical choice. And don't get me wrong, I think maybe some would have still said it was boring or anything like that, given that that best part of the movie is what a lot of people do criticize. But I think it would have been a choice, and I think the Snatchers are representative of that. The Snatchers are people taking advantage of war for their own personal, selfish, fucked up gains, and that works. That comes across in the movie.
Yeah, I think so, and I think like there's moments that work really well. Like I think Harry saying to Umbridge, one mustn't tell lies right before he knocks her out. That's great. I don't think you think that's in the book. It might be, but I don't think so. Brilliant. That's like there's so many tiny moments that are really good, and it's so weird that none of it comes together properly at all. I even think Matilda turning into the snake, the little jump scare. That's a pretty pretty harrowing moment in the movie. Like visually, how it's filmed and stuff. That worked.
Yeah, it is quite, and it's funny because the from the fifth book onwards, they really do, like the books, like really do start upping the kind of the gross harrowing factor. Like some of the stuff in the book, because I've just finished in my rereading, I've just finished Order, and some of the descriptions of like the fights in the Ministry are really like dark and gory visually. Yes. Like there's the Death Eaters whose head is constantly turning into a baby's head. There's all sorts of stuff.
About that. That's brutal. That guy gets it rough. He's the worst one.
There's a lot of really like gross out body horror, and this is probably the closest the books come to representing that on screen. Like that section of the film, again, it's that thing of when it picks a tone and goes for it. Like this is actually that you have some good moments. That whilst it's not necessary, and also it's a bit weird because clearly, guys, something's fucked up here. Why are you following her? But that sequence, and again, smashing through to their old house, etc., that sequence plays like a horror movie, and it's effective, for sure.
There are definitely parts that work. So it's just a shame it never really comes together in any conceivable way. I've got a couple of like minor notes as well. I should just quickly barrel through if you don't mind. Oh, last question. How was magic used? Did you have any thoughts on that? Badly.
No, we're in peak. There's not even any attempt to take us away from gun mode, apart from maybe the Obliviate season. And also, it's really odd. It's such a weird, because I like it. It adds texture. It links to the old movies. But you just, it's the moment where he, like, why does he Accio the dignity or whatever it's called, like the potion where he's like Accio dignity, and I'm like, is that there just so did they literally go, oh fuck, we haven't got any spells, tell you what, instead of Harry reaching into the bag, he's gonna Accio dignity out.
I think that's from the book that he in that moment he like the bag, the beaded necklace bag or whatever it is, the beaded bag is like so deep and so cavernous that he has no idea how to find the thing in it, and like he axioms it to himself. I think that is. I do think that's a direct lift.
Yeah, but why? That's as often we ask on this. Why have you chosen to lift that moment from the book instead of taking those valuable seconds? Because you've already established that about the bag, and Ron's an ungrateful prick, by the way, having him being like, these aren't my favourite jeans. You've already established that about the bag, so I tell you what.
That's also from the book.
How about you don't lift that bit, so not the jeans thing, if that's from the book, because that adds texture to that moment and is a bit of levity as we transition into the guys are actually Death Eaters. But how about you don't have Accio dignity, you don't have Bill talking about Greyback, and you take those moments and you use that time to give us a fucking explanation for that mirror. Like, why?
Yeah. Or some character work. You know, I mean, I'd never forgive the mirror not being properly established, but I would be more kind to the movie if it at least did some fucking good character stuff. What's Harry's arc in this movie? He's the fucking lead. It's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. What's Harry's arc?
Well, mate, the Deathly Hallows only come up at the very end. Oh, to be fair, they embed the symbol throughout, I suppose.
Yeah, and for me, like, they've split the movie in half. That was always going to be a weird thing. They'd have to invent a middle title if they wanted. You know, Harry Potter and the fucking locket, the annoying locket.
To be fair,
the shit locket
as a title. As a title justification, it's probably still doing more work than the Half-Blood Prince does. Yes. Magic is used. There is no. We are so far away from magic being used to add magical texture to the world that it is unbelievable. And yeah, we're in full blown wand gun territory, and magic is not used particularly well. And some of the stuff with the enchantment spells around the camp, and that scene again with the snatchers and the divide between them, the bag, there's basically Hermione's doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the magic in this movie. So yeah, that's it. Why is it this weird orb thing with Kingsley's voice instead of being a Patronus like it is in the book? Like, just weird decisions, man. Anyway. Why isn't Harry? Oh, well, okay, I know why Harry doesn't take Polyjuice Potion at the wedding, but still, we don't have time for that. I get it. Well, actually, to be fair, you've just set up Polyjuice Potion, so you probably could do it. But
well, yeah, but I mean, they've removed Polyjuice Potion for a couple of scenes, and there's one where they even hang a hat on that fact. Like, they arrive at Godric's Hollow, and in the book, they are disguised with Polyjuice Potion. So that they don't get spotted as Harry Potter and Hermione. But like, if you don't want to do that in the movie, just don't do it. Don't then have a line where Hermione's like, I would have felt more comfortable using Polyjuice Potion, and Harry being like, I don't know, fuck it, who cares? Because then it just makes them look incompetent. Like, that's not good. That's not good writing. Just don't mention it at all if you're going to make that choice. Because I wouldn't have. That reminds me, because I'll be honest with you,
I don't reckon, I may be wrong, because I was wrong about the dough thing. I don't reckon this is getting paid off, but that's another great scene. That's another great element of the Luna's dad scene, where he turns round and he looks all apologetic, and then he yells Voldemort's name, and that's obviously what brings the Death Eaters. Like, oh, he's so good. He of all the new characters, he's my favourite because he's the one that kind of justifies his presence and has this awesome scene. And again, that's no disrespect to Bill Nighy. Bill Nighy's actually brilliant in the role, but the character doesn't need to be that new character. It could just be Fudge because
Scrimgeour does nothing in this movie because Scrimgeour, like in the previous movie, because Scrimgeour is supposed to be in Half-Blood Prince. He's part of that book.
Yes,
and they cut it, which is fine. We're in favor of cutting things in these podcasts. But Scrimgeour's arc is he wants to turn Harry into a bit of a mascot for the Ministry, use him to sort of like manipulate the public into thinking the Ministry are doing a better job, so they support what he's up to. Harry doesn't want to do that. And in the end, he and Scrimgeour have a very hostile relationship. Now, you've not set that up, so in this movie, they don't have a very hostile relationship. The scene where Scrimgeour gives Harry, Ron, and Hermione the things, the stuff from the will in the book, ends with Harry and Scrimgeour pointing wands at each other, and Harry burning a hole into Scrimgeour burning a hole into Harry's shirt because he loses his temper with him. Now, we don't have the established stuff for that, so you can't have that kind of relationship with them here.
Just make it Fudge.
And that's fine.
Like I said at the beginning, just make it Fudge. We know Fudge.
Right.
We know who that is. We don't need to establish anything.
And
just make it Fudge.
Fudge is the one who spent the other movie calling Harry a liar, right? He's the one who gave him. So the scene from I think it's Order of the Phoenix. No, it's not from Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, no, it's the scene from Half-Blood Prince where Harry talks to Scrimgeour and Scrimgeour's like, "You're going to come help the Ministry," and Harry's like, "No, you've still got Dolores Umbridge in a position of power. I don't like how you do things, Minister." And Harry shows him the "I must not tell lies" scar. Have that moment here with Fudge. Fudge comes to Harry. He wants Harry to be honest to him about what Dumbledore's plans were and stuff. And Harry's like, "Hey, I don't like how you do things, Minister. Remember, Dolores Umbridge. Remember this? I must not tell lies. That was you." Because that's even more powerful if you do it that way. Because it's less powerful with Scrimgeour. Because Scrimgeour's not the one who made that happen. It was Fudge. So even in the book, I'm like, Scrimgeour was not responsible for Umbridge at your school. Fudge was. But, so you do it here, and it's Fudge. It's way better.
There's something to do with Stan as well. I think the guy maybe from the night bus, isn't he been arrested or something in the books?
So there's a storyline in the book where Stan Shunpike from the night bus is arrested and put into Azkaban for being a Death Eater, and Harry and Dumbledore both feel very strongly that's obviously not true and that they should release him because they don't really have any evidence or whatever. And the reveal at the end, in this book is. Stan Shunpike really is a Death Eater and is part of the gang that attack them on the brooms at the beginning with the Seven Potters. I think he might even be responsible for killing Hedwig. No, they never clarify whose curse kills Hedwig, and fans have speculated, and I like this speculation, that Snape kills Hedwig because Snape is concerned Hedwig will give away which Harry is the right one because it will go with that Harry.
Which is, I don't really know why you've taken out the Expelliarmus angle from the films, especially when it's so relevant at the end. But in a world where you have done that, the film's adaptation of it is Hedwig that gives it away, it did feel like that's a kind of decision where I go, that's clean. I understand why you've done that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand in the wider context why you've done that because it's such a huge part of the final film. And the solution.
Yeah, completely.
They've created themselves another mirror problem here because by not putting the mirror in Order of the Phoenix, they kind of fucked themselves for this. And by not putting the Expelliarmus thing in here, which for those who don't know, and I keep having to explain plots in the book just for context for anyone who doesn't know the books. In the books, there's a running thing that Harry always goes to Expelliarmus because it is a disarming spell and it doesn't cause harm. Anyone on a broom during that fight, if he hit them with a spell, they would potentially fall to their deaths. And Harry, still wanting to be the better man, not wanting to murder, uses Expelliarmus to disarm his opponents, and Lupin says that was foolish, because not only did the Death Eaters clock that it was you, because you showed that mercy, but also you shouldn't be showing that mercy. We're in a war now. Now it's time to fight for real. And Harry's like, nah, I'm going to do things my way, thank you. And then in the end, Expelliarmus is the thing that actually takes out Voldemort. In a really clever way, and it's a really great payoff.
Well, no, Neville killing the snake takes out Voldemort, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah, well, we'll find out next week, Chris.
I can't wait till we get
Tune in for that fucking bullshit on the editing. Anyway, let's move on to. I've got a couple of quick notes, just things I want to do. I'm going to very quickly read you a tiny bit from the script, Chris, just to ask you a question about. Everyone turns. Ron stands in the doorway. Dobby smiles. Master Weasley, so good to see you again. Where did Dobby meet Ron?
Why's the Burrow back? Like, doesn't matter, Dan. Move on.
Cool.
Don't let it worry you.
Sure.
But yes, you're right.
Yep, cool. I've got a couple of compliments here. I really enjoyed the visualization of the decoy detonator. I like that it's like multiple explosions. In the book, it's just kind of makes a big noise somewhere and distracts people, but I like that it's like multiple weird purple explosions. That's fun. I think it's visually interesting, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was silly, but in a good way. Worked. I enjoyed as they were escaping, Harry bewitching all the pages of the wanted poster to like whiz around and get everyone's away. I thought that was kind of creative and an interesting use of magic. One of the few examples of that in this movie. Instead of just shooting a sparks at them, he, does the stuff for the pages. I like it. That's good. Point to the movie. We've already talked about this one. Sorry, I'll skip all that. It's the moment with the snatchers just being on the other side of the portal. That's on the portal. The protective barrier. Really great. What else is in here that's not already been covered? Right, so
I have a random note.
Oh, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was going to do one while you were looking. Why does every franchise, do all franchises live long enough to have a scene where listens with headphones while there's a battle going on behind? Like, surely now, no one's... And to be fair, I know this film is quite old at this point, but do you know what I mean? How many... Like, we've seen that a lot, people. Like, surely now we're
But it's
at a
funny,
point...
Chris. She doesn't know there's chaos happening behind her. She can't see it. She can't hear it. She's, like, oblivious, and there's, like, people like, being hurt and stuff.
Surely we're at a point
Chris.
now where we don't need to do that scene.
I don't know. Maybe we do.
We don't. Cool. What was your note?
We have the Hallows explained in this movie, but they're not explained. We don't explain how they relate to Harry at all. Is adding an extraneous plot element at all worth doing? I guess my question, Chris, in this is: do we need, in a world where we're not going to actually set up the Hallows, do we need them to be anything more than like the wand? I guess that'll depend on how they're used in the next movie, right? Because in this movie, they're pointless.
But they're... No. But I feel for them in that instance. Because much like last week, you and I are all for bold decisions. But having to change the name of the thing because you've decided you're not going to do the title story is a bold decision that even I, in Noel's and everyone else's position, even I don't think I'd be going, yeah, we should, yeah, okay, let's just make it Harry Potter and the Locket, and then the next one, Harry Potter and the Elder Wand. Like, I completely agree with you. So I think what you do is you execute it better, and you make it more of a thing. As you said earlier, you know, this movie becomes Horcruxes versus Hallows. You have him find out what it is earlier, and maybe it's about that, whatever. But you can't.
So the solution is do something with them, not cut them.
The solution is do something with them, not ignore them. Because as with last week with the Half-Blood Prince, you just that's too bold. Even I, a big banger of the drum of change things, be bold, would go. I can see why you probably avoided doing that.
That's fair. Last one of these before we get into truth, Chris. The taboo. So in the book, there's a thing where if you say it turns out the reason people were so wary of saying Voldemort's name back in the day is because he put a spell on his name where if you say it, I don't know, someone somewhere gets like a little flashy light goes off and they know to apparate to you or whatever. And it breaks down defensive spells and protective curses, and the reason they get caught by the Snatchers in the book is Harry says the name Voldemort because he always does, and the Snatchers get in and get them, right? So you're not putting that in the movie. Okay, bit weird because it just makes it seem like they get out of Lovegoods and then they just really bad luck just apparate to where the Snatchers are, which is just insane and really unfortunate. But okay, fine. Contrivances and coincidences are not new to this film series. I'll go along with that, I guess. But do you think in a world where we've set up the question multiple times of how did they find us when we were in London, do you think it's maybe we need to establish why and answer that question? Or do you think asking that question just to make sure people know, oh, that is weird, and then never actually answering it is fine?
No, I think
to set up a question and not actually answer it is dumb.
Yeah, I think it's a trap. To be honest with you, I don't remember them saying his name in the cafe scene, but presumably they do. Like I said earlier, I like that. I like him yelling the name and the Death Eaters appearing at the end, Luna's dad. I think that
never
works.
Explain it. If you're not a reader of the book, that's nothing. That's what weird.
Well, that's why I said when I talked about that earlier, I look forward to seeing if that's actually explained in the next movie. I don't remember. I doubt it is. But yeah,
well, no, you'd explain it. You'd explain it here, right? Because that's how you'd have to explain it in this movie because there's scenes relevant to it in this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, in a slight defense, maybe they get to it later, but they probably won't. But you know what, Dan? Also, and I'm not saying they're right, but given some of the fucking bizarre decisions they made, honestly, they might have gone, again, in a world where you're not explaining the mirror, they might have gone, well, if Reese yells it, that'll answer that question, won't it? People will be able to put those pieces together. But again, I'll go back now. I mean, they must say it in the cafe scene. They just must. But yeah, I don't remember them saying it even in that scene. Let me have a look.
Let's have a look.
But it's all right. I've got it up now. I'll have a look.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not finding it. But let's see. Let's see.
That's all right. I've got. What's your next? I've got it up. I'll have a look.
I was gonna do the triv.
Oh, okay.
But I've got the script, and I've Control F for Voldemort. So it's going through the scene where Voldemort is in it as I skip through these, because of course he's in that scene a lot. We're at the end of that scene, right? We've been betrayed. Voldemort knew you were being moved tonight. So Lupin says Voldemort's name at the Burrow.
Yeah,
so if the trace exists in the movies, they just broke all their defenses and summoned Voldemort and his gang.
Well, if it exists at that point,
Not the trace, sorry. It's the taboo.
Maybe it gets put in place later. Hold on, I'm just looking at the cafe
and then we've got
scene.
Bill later on in the movie saying Mundungus took one look at Voldemort and disappeared. Then
He does say it in the cafe scene. So someone says if Voldemort's taken over the Ministry. So it is said in the cafe.
Yeah, I've just found it. Yeah, if Voldemort's taken over the Ministry, none of the old places are safe. All right. Anywhere else? Hermione says it when they're camping. Harry, I can't imagine why he'd want to go there, but I don't think Bathilda Bagshot is going to know where the Voldemort hid his Horcruxes. So they say Voldemort while they're camping, nothing happens. It's bad.
Because it's not relevant for that scene, Dan. We don't need a Snatcher.
And then, okay, so they don't say it when the Snatchers catch them the first time. Towards the end of the movie, and they do say it in a completely different scene, and the Snatchers don't appear. Consistency movie, thank you. That will be nice. Anyway, moving on. It's a bad movie. Let's do the triv. Go on, say a thing. I want to get out. I'm done. I need to stop because I'm so mad.
Let's do it. Let's do the trip. It's all good.
Yeah. I'm waiting for you, mate. You got a thing to say.
Oh, I can't remember what that was now. When did I say I had a thing? I asked it. I think
you say a thing before we do the triv.
I think I asked that. I think I slotted that in. It was the point about I can't remember what point it was now, but I've asked that. I said
Are you fucking high?
What?
You say a thing before we go into the triv.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's
Jesus Christ!
You've worn me down. Let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. Jesus, was I drawing blood from a stone?
I thought you were saying. Did you have a point to make before you thought I had a point to make?
No. No, but fine. It's all good. We're here. John Williams, who composed the score for the first 3 movies, expressed interest in returning for the final 2, but was unable to do so due to a scheduling conflict. That's a shame. The music in these movies is mostly just fine. Passable. It's passable. I wouldn't criticize the music, but I also wouldn't compliment the music. The only good bits in these music scores in these later movies is the bits they nick from his original score for the first one.
Yeah, so, completely.
Cool.
Everyone's very nostalgic for the music of Harry Potter. It's literally mainly that one piece of music.
It's Hedwig's. Was it Hedwig's theme or whatever it's called? Yeah. Jason Isaacs originally considered not returning for this movie. He wasn't going to do it. Because he had feared that his character's arrest and imprisonment at the end of Order of the Phoenix basically meant he'd get no screen time. But he had a sit down with J.K. Rowling, who he then begged to be let out of prison, and she just said, "You're already out." Chapter 1, which immediately convinced him to sign for this. I guess that's from before the book was released. But there you go.
I think we can
fickle man that Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, and I think we could all agree, based on what the scriptwriters of the movie then did, he was probably right.
Yes, that's correct. Filming the 7 Harry scene was so complex that Daniel Radcliffe counted over 90 takes for a single shot. Because obviously it was just him in all the shots, different poses and places. So there you go. According to producer David Heyman, the work print of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was 5.5 hours long. The shooting script was close to 500 pages, which is what justified the decision to split the movie in 2. Now, I was supposed to double check this, but I unfortunately I didn't get enough time. I usually try to look into these a bit further. That implies they made this as one movie, but literally made this as one movie. Like, they wrote a stupid long script, filmed a stupid long movie, and still weren't sure that they were going to release it in 2 parts or not. And that they made that decision afterwards. If that's true, that's fucking mental.
Yeah, that's crazy. How is no one looking at that script going, what can we cut?
Crazy.
Surely not. That's madness. So
the fact they shot it at 500 pages, they were like, "Oh, it's 500 pages long. We'll just shoot it anyway." They must have known. I'm not sure I buy that.
Yeah, it must have been. It's 500 pages long. Let's film it, and we'll work out where to cut it later. Which is still wrong,
right,
because that's one of the reasons it doesn't build to anything. It feels like it's a movie chopped in 2, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's that old obnoxious Joss Whedon story about like he always said that like he watched Empire Strikes Back, and then a few years later they released Return of the Jedi, and he went to he claims he went to the theater, showed them his Empire Strikes Back ticket, and was like, "Can I see the other half of this movie, please?" Which is like kind of funny, but also kind of obnoxious.
Yeah,
I hope he didn't really do that, and he was just like making it was just a funny way of making a point about the fact that Empire Strikes Back and Last Jedi kind of like, it's one story across 2 movies, which I think that's the right way to do it, because at least Empire has like a through line and closure. It's negative closure for the lead characters, but it's closure anyway. It doesn't matter.
But also, like you're really making a point. If he did do that, your point is really being made to George Lucas, not the poor cinema clerk who just wants to fucking get people through. Like Star Wars, it's this massive movie. There's queues for miles, and you've got some knobhead making a critique point about the movie.
I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, you're right. That person just must have been like, all right, whatever, dude. Buy a fucking ticket or go home. Yeah. I'd like to see the other half of this movie, please. Yeah, fuck off, Joss Whedon. Dude. Dear Lord. Right. I sincerely hope that was just like his way of criticizing the movie in a sort of story form, because not that it's actually a thing he did. Anyway, David Holmes, who is a 25-year-old stunt stunt performer, who was Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double on these movies, unfortunately was seriously injured on the set at Leavesden Studios near Watford, Hertfordshire. He was basically performing an aerial sequence when he fell to the ground following an explosion. The falling to the ground was part of the stunt, but he landed wrong, and not necessarily through his fault. I'll clear it up here, but whatever happened, he ended up landing wrong and seriously injuring his back. That's very sad. I hope he carried on to do other stuff, even though that was sounds like a pretty serious injury. So yeah, that's sad news. There are a couple of injuries on the set of this one for some reason. I've not got them all in here, but there was more than one. Upon seeing the set for Hermione's bedroom, Emma Watson told the set decorators that she wanted more books, and they happily accommodated. The fact they hadn't thought of that, and it took Emma Watson to say it, is fucking endemic of all of this. All of this. The machine at this point was just moving. Just moving. As in her previous movies, Ivana Lynch designed a lot of Luna Lovegood's character, including what she wore, the jewellery, the things for the Lovegood's house. She even came up with the dance moves in the wedding scene, based on the concept of wafting wax spurts away, which is obviously from the novel. Once again, Ivana Lynch, the MVP of the Harry Potter franchise, protecting the weird nonsense in the book. John Hurt's reprisal as Ollivander here marks the longest gap between appearances in this franchise, 9 years. The second place, it goes to Toby Jones' reprisal as Dobby, which was 8 years, because obviously he appeared in the second one.
Good facts. That's great, Triv.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoy that. That's good. That's good trivia. Apparently over 500 wands were made for this movie alone. They were checked out and checked in before, so they actually were able to, calculate how many they had. That's why they know they had over 500. But apparently most of them ended up coming back broken. Because were they
unique designs of each 500?
Unclear. That's a good question. I know that some of those will have been like multiples of Harry's and multiples of, Voldemort's and multiples of the Elder Wand and all that stuff. So yeah, I assume that there's... Because famously, they always said that Daniel Radcliffe, went through a ton of wands. He broke a lot. And he's always disputed that and said, everyone broke a lot. Yes, I broke some. We all broke them. they were fickle, thin pieces of wood, and we were filming action scenes. Like, I think I think he's disputed that as a claim that he's like some sort of clumsy person.
I only ask because if they've made most of those ones unique, and they didn't put books in Hermione's room, then fuck those guys.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Unclear, but possibly. Who knows? During the filming of the Harry Potter movies, Daniel Radcliffe went through 160 pairs of glasses. What an interesting fact.
Mind-blowing fact.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to finding out in 2 episodes whether you're going to adapt the joke for Fantastic Beasts or let it go. I look forward to finding out what that is.
Stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. A scene was filmed in which Nymphadora Tonks told Molly Weasley that she was pregnant. That was filmed, but it ended up being cut. Even though it's hard to see, Tonks is clearly wearing a maternity gown at Bill and Fleur's wedding. And obviously we have the other moment where she says that they have something to announce, and she puts her hand on her stomach, and then they cut away from them and distract immediately. So I guess that is still technically in the movie, I guess. Linguist and expert.
I can't stress enough because, and don't get me wrong, the idea of the Second War also creates an orphan is not even in the books executed, overly. There's references to Teddy in the 9 Years Later and all of that stuff, but there's not, that idea as a premise is not executed to the full depth and it's not high. Its execution is not highlighting how good an idea that is, even in the books. But I can't stress enough how irritated I am that the films had a way of doing it with a simple change and couldn't do it, and it's just wasted. Like, honestly, because at no point in this film does she reveal to be pregnant, and I know that the dialogue in the forest scene is your son will grow up, and Lupin says something like he'll grow up knowing what his parents died for. If we get to that moment and find that is how they tell the audience that she's had a baby, it will be fucking mind-blowing to me, because don't bother putting it in then. Just don't put it in.
They do. I mean, the moment when she says we have some news, she does sort of put her hand on her stomach, like she
but it's not. If you're just watching the movies, it's not enough. It's more than the mirror.
You don't think that's enough?
But it's not enough.
Okay. Yeah. I'm unsure if because I feel it's hard for me because I know they have a kid and that they're a relationship. I would love to get the perspective of someone who's like never read the books, never seen these films, just going through them and stopping them at this stage and going, "Do you know about that?"
But it's your Hermione complaint at the beginning of the movie. It's completely stripped of its meaning and nuance by the rushed execution.
No, I'm agreeing with that, but just from a practical, would they know that they'd had a baby standpoint?
Right. Yeah.
Just purely, because I agree with all the complaint on a character basis. You're stripping all of the value from it, so why put it in? But your secondary point was like, if we get to the next movie and they never establish that she's had a baby, Harry's last line is going to feel really fucking weird because they've never clarified she had the baby. I'm asking the question, relating specifically to that practical point of whether they ever establish it. Is her saying, we have news, putting her arm around Lupin and holding her stomach, is that enough? I think it's enough that somebody might have picked up on it, but the question is, I suppose, on a wide scale, would people unfamiliar with the books know?
But also, don't forget that if you're not in that context, if you're not familiar with the books and you're only watching these movies, you're probably in that moment going, wait, were these two a couple in the last movie?
Because we talked about this last week. Don't they do a scene where she calls him like honey or darling or something? Like in the last one? Like to pass it off? Yeah. Anyway. Ugh. Apparently they got in a linguist expert called Dr. Francis Nolan to design and devise a parcel tongue language for this movie, and also the other Harry Potter movies where serpents speak, but it's only made it into the trivia for this one. But apparently he was involved the whole time. That's interesting. A bit unnecessary. I think just some hissing would have been fine, but sure, go for it. The main street set in Godric's Hollow is the same set they used for Hogsmeade in Prisoner of Azkaban, but they obviously redressed the set. I like it when they do that. I like that they sometimes seem really thrifty. I enjoy that. Harry Melling, who plays Dudley Dursley, had lost so much weight during the hiatus between the last movie and this one that he had to wear special face prosthetics in this movie. It took the makeup department about 6 months to create the prosthetics that would look realistic enough when viewed in a close-up of his face, but in the end, nearly all of the scenes that involved him were cut. So this ended up being wasted time. Sorry, but don't put him in a fat suit. Just let him be skinny now. That's fine. He's a human being. People's weights fluctuate, as proven by the actual human being whose weight fluctuated between your movies. If you're thinking, oh, no one will believe it that he lost so much weight in a year. Hey, guess what? He lost that weight in a year.
Mate, you could even make a character argument. Like he's not in Half-Blood Prince. The last time we saw the character, he was scared shitless by a monster. Like you can even create a in-universe.
Right. Well,
do you know what I mean?
In the book, he gets skinny and buff because he does boxing. He gets in shape.
Yeah, that's in Order of the Phoenix. In Order of the Phoenix, he isn't actually that big because of weight anymore. He's big because of getting of the boxing, like you say.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird. Anyway, yeah. Just also, I know that they gave goofy teeth and a fat suit to the kid that plays Neville in all these movies. Shitty move from the producers and people involved in those decisions. Just don't do it. It's horrible. Leave that poor kid alone. Like, just let him grow into the handsome young man that we all know he grows into. Oh, I've seen all the memes. I know. I get it. Good looking lad.
Someone once told me I was Neville Longbottoming, but I think we can all agree I've reversed right back to previous Longbottom. I'm a boomerang Longbottom, mate. Come right back round.
Chris Boomerang Longbottom Billingham. That's his name. This is the only film in the franchise to not feature Maggie Smith, David Bradley, and Alfred Enoch, who plays Dean Thomas. So I should clarify: Maggie Smith, McGonagall, Dave Bradley, Argus Filch, and Alfred Enoch, Dean Thomas. They don't appear in the movie. It is a little weird to not have them in a Harry Potter thing. McGonagall's consistent presence throughout this is good, but I understand why she's not in this portion of this book. She's in the book, but she's not in the first half of it, and this is the first half of the book. Actually, it's more than the first half. It's like the first 2/3, but sure. Yeah, fine.
If you were just, a question bigger than we've got time. Well, I mean, we've got time, but yeah. It's a big question.
We've got time, but it's getting towards 10 o'clock in the evening, and I've not eaten.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And and I was in that position the other week. But a quick one: if you were doing the TV show, and these, if anything, rereading the books and rewatching the films at the same time has made me really wish there was that TV show. Would you cut back to Hogwarts, or would you leave that for Neville to explain?
No, I would. I do it like an episode. I do like an almost a meanwhile at episode where it's just like we just take Neville's perspective and see what's going down at Hogwarts. During all this. Yeah, I reckon you get away with doing that like once per season.
Yeah.
You just add an extra episode of like what's happening elsewhere. That's like a non-Harry focused episode.
Yeah,
just
like
to sort of
Chamber,
explore another aspect of the world or another character.
Chamber, you do it from the point of view of those Hufflepuffs, that think he's guilty, and
sure, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, do an episode where Harry's like from their perspective, Harry's this sinister kid like creeping around the school. That's cool. That's a good idea. Yeah, like you could do tons of stuff like that. It's a big old world. It's not creatively bankrupt in the way that Star Wars is. You can do that. So, as a franchise.
Carry on, Truman.
Yes. Well, I mean, Star Wars nearly wasn't creatively bankrupt. Rian Johnson tried to expand what Star Wars is, and everyone fucking threw their toys out the pram. So now Star Wars is creatively bankrupt forever. Thank you, you morons. Anyway, the exterior scenes of Malfoy Manor were shot at Hardwick Hall, which is... Sorry, just a little dig for all the anti-Last Jedi people there. Just to slip that into our Harry Potter review.
Complains about the need to eat and be prompt, and then brings a Last Jedi debate to a Harry Potter fight.
Yeah, you got me. The exterior scenes of Malfoy Manor were shot at Hardwick Hall, which is the most significant Elizabethan country house in England. I like that they're shooting on real sets again, because in I think the last movie, or maybe the one before, they said that it was all shot in like green screens and studio stuff. I like that they're out in the real world again. That's fun. Me likey. Apparently, Stanislaw Janevsky did appear in this movie as Victor Krum. He filmed scenes for the wedding, but they were cut from the final movie, which is funny because apparently promo pictures of him were released, of him dancing with Hermione. So,
oh yeah, I think I've seen that picture. Yeah.
So they shot that, it just didn't end up in the final film.
I think
that's fine. Krum doesn't need to be in the movie. It's fine.
Maybe I've seen that deleted scene even. I feel like I've even seen Ron staring annoyed at them. So, but yeah, anyway.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that sounds like the scene. So yeah, maybe you have seen it. Maybe that has been released since. Bill Weasley was played by Domhnall Gleeson, who is obviously son of Mad Eye Moody actor Brendan Gleeson. Ironically, the novel actually mentions that after the attack on Bill from Greyback, he resembles Moody. So that's actually quite funny that played by father and son.
What do you think of the choice of the Cockney accent for Bill?
Weird, considering the other characters, but it's not exactly how the rest of the Weasleys sound. So it's a bit like, where'd you get that from? You certainly didn't get it from Egypt. So
yeah,
but fine enough. I can imagine a lot of people watch this movie didn't even realize his accent was different. I think that's fine. He's good in this movie. They just don't give him much to do. He might have more in the next one though, because Bill's a reasonable big part of what happens next. Because what happens next, we're at Shell Cottage, right? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I think I he doesn't get a lot to do, but I think he's good in the role. Did you have any problems with that casting choice?
Oh, I love Donald Gleeson as an actor. I was a bit thrown by the Cockney accent because
right.
He's, like you say, he's not the, because part of me was like, oh, maybe it's to do with the fact that he's, in Gringotts and in London, and then I was like, no, I don't think that's Bill. Actually, that's Charlie, isn't it? So, like, I was thrown.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fine. I love that actor, so I'll forgive Donald Gleeson for quite a lot. I'll forgive Donald Gleeson for his some questionable decisions maybe in Star Wars. So yeah, yeah.
So the character of Griphook was played by Vern Troyer in Philosopher's Stone, but was voiced overdubbed by Warwick Davis. Actually, Vern Troyer has the privilege of being one of the very, very few American actors to make it into the Harry Potter franchise. Even if he didn't get his voice in the final movie, it was dubbed in by Warwick Davis. But in this movie, they just cast Davis to play Griphook, both body and voice. Obviously, that makes sense because the other character he plays, Flitwick, not in this movie, so he's about. And you put him in enough makeup, you don't necessarily know it's him. I mean, I often spot him because it's Warwick Davis. I'm very familiar with him at this stage. But, I think the average person doesn't realise it's him.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's fine.
Just to clarify, I've double-checked the deleted scenes on YouTube. I've skimmed through them. The Crumb dancing isn't, so I must have just seen the image. So that's fine.
Oh, interesting. Oh, there you go. It had been erroneously reported ahead of the release of this movie that it would contain a scene of Daniel Radcliffe in the nude. This led to a lot of speculation among fans that the movie would earn a stricter rating. Of course, this turned out not to be the case. The scene that seems to have sparked the rumour, though, is, of course, the Harry-Hermione kissing scene. So someone clearly got an advanced screening, saw that, passed it around, and yeah. So I've got a bit of information here which we've already gone through about how that scene was shot and that it wasn't computer generated and that they did actually have both actors fairly not very well clothed. Apparently director David Yates said that the complete nudity was not necessary. The characters would be, of course, obscured by fog. The nudity wasn't necessary, mate, at all. Zero. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Just bad choice all round.
In no way at all necessary.
100%. So the scenes, I can't believe we're even talking about nudity in a fucking Harry Potter movie review, but whatever. Bunch of dumbasses made these movies apparently, and I'm getting more and more progressively fed up with them as we watch. The scenes featuring Dobby and Creature were filmed twice. They were played physically on set by their voice actors, so the other actors and actresses had a guideline from which to go on. Then the same scene was shot without the voice actors, so the visual effects team could put in the CGI characters in post-production. And actually, I think I want to say the actor that plays Creature was actually from Warwick Davis's acting school. Because he has an acting, not a school, agency. He has an agency for other short people to find work, which I think they made fun of, not made fun of, but like did jokes about and like put as part of the storyline for that was the show, the Ricky Gervais one, Life's Too Short.
Yeah, they did do that in that.
Yeah. Anyway, Scabio's violent twist in the air when Bellatrix uses her whip on him was not in the original script. Nick Moran improvised it on the set to avoid being upstaged by Helena Bonham Carter, who, of course, is overacting to the fucking walls in this movie, as always, because she is crazy. The filmmakers liked that touch and decided to use it. Moran was delighted until he realised that for it to work, the stunt would have to be repeated for several takes, so he had to keep doing it. Ha ha ha. It's a funny thing that happened to that poor man. He made a creative choice in the moment and then regretted it deeply when he realised he just was now going to have to throw his body around multiple times. And we all laughed at his suffering. Because that's the only reason that's in the trivia. So yeah, Helena Bonham Carter, we didn't really talk about this. The torture scene for Hermione is reasonably effective, to be fair. I think you buy it. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And we talked about Dobby's scene not being particularly good and being a bit manipulative. We didn't really talk about the actual death itself. I guess physically it's fine. The knife kind of just makes it through the portal, I guess. I don't know.
There's tension. The way you see the knife go in and her grin, but you don't know right away what's happened. Like, that's executed well, I think.
Yeah, I guess. I just hate it because it's cheap and emotionally bankrupt and void of any real feelings, other than the deliberate attempt to just like manipulate you into feeling something for Dobby, a character that was previously seen as being very annoying. It's horrible. Anyway, moving on. The famous dance scene between Hermione and Harry was written exclusively for the movie and was... Oh, here we go. Actually, shit, did I not read my own trivia properly? It was an original idea of screenwriter Steve Kloves. The scene is amongst producer David Heyman's favourite moments in the franchise. The song was selected for the dancers Oh Children, performed by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Oh, okay, so that doesn't actually say that it was then butchered with the romantic stuff by Kloves. He just put the original idea in. That still kind of backs up my theory, because I still feel like all the romantic tension was added by...
I'll have to rewatch the interview, and I'll send you the bit, because I can't remember for sure whether he says that or that's just Rowling's interpretation.
Yeah, okay, interesting. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione are caught in the wood by the Snatchers, Hermione tells them her name is Penelope Clearwater. That is the name of Percy's girlfriend from the books. That's true. That is true. That's a thing. Now we all know it. True, everyone. We got the truth. Rhys Ifans admitted that he never read the books before he took the role of Mr. Lovegood, but he just took on the role to basically work with the all-star cast because he knew all the best of British actors were in Harry Potter. I guess he didn't realise he was going to be working with these three children and never anyone else.
Yeah, because even at the wedding he doesn't interact with them, so...
Nope. Mr. Ifans, maybe read the book next time to check.
It's a shame, really, isn't it? Because I know this isn't in the books, but there's certain people like him where you go, fuck it, chuck him in at the end, chuck him in at the battle. Why not? Like, do you know what I mean? Just, it's a visual meaning.
We've been saying this all along, though, right? Like, why can't Crumb and like the Durmstrang kids and like the people like from all over this franchise just turn up again? We can even do that on the bad guys' side. Have David Tennant show up in the end in the last one.
Yeah, especially because in the films you've not killed him, so...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you make that choice, then fine. Like, have him show up. Have everyone who's been in these movies show up for a small cameo in the final one. That's fine. They don't need to be in it a lot. Just like a scene. Just like, not even a scene, like a back... They could be in the background. I don't even care. It just feels weird to not have so many of these people vanish. Anyway. Nick Moran was interested in knowing how his character would appear in costume. He saw earlier renderings and was unsatisfied with some of it. He requested several items to be added, including knee-high boots that had to be laced up all the way, and they were uncomfortable while running. He had no clue when he made all those choices that he would have to be running in the forest after Radcliffe, Grint, and Watson for a huge number of takes, and suffered for it. Once again, ha ha ha, actor made terrible choice and suffered for it. We should all laugh at his misfortune.
Oh, I mean, especially when you just pick up the book and give it a read. Like, surely you realise.
Right. Pick up the script. Was it not in the script? Forget the book. Did he not read the script? Like,
that's fair.
Was it not ready at that point? I don't understand. Anyway, fine, no problem. Whatever. The revelation that R.A.B. was Sirius Black's brother, Regulus, was correct. Yeah, because R.A.B. is not Sirius Black. Was go on.
Oh, sorry. I think the connection went. I just couldn't hear you for a minute, but I think the connection on the phone must have just gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the revelation that R.A.B. was Sirius Black's brother, Regulus, was correctly guessed by readers of the book soon after Half-Blood Prince was published, and a good 2 years before the Deathly Hallows book was released. The interesting way they figured this out, for sure, was actually really clever. I remember this at the time as a fan of the books and reading on forums and stuff. What they did, and I just got this in here because I'm always really impressed by this, is someone went, well, wait a minute. Sirius Black's name doesn't start with a B in every language. In other languages, it starts with a different letter because they've adjusted the name. So apparently, for example, in Dutch editions of Harry Potter, he's Sirius Zwarts. So what they did was, they took the last letter, R-A-B, they went B, okay, B for black, because we think this is Regulus Arcturus Black, right? Fine. We'll take the B, and we'll check in every other language what Sirius's surname is, and see if their version of R.A.B. is updated. So in Finnish editions, he's Sirius Musta, and it's R-A-M.
Oh, that's clever. That's great.
In the Dutch editions, it's Sirius Zwarts, and it's R-A-Z. And they found that in every single translation, the letter was changed to match the letter that's the last name of Sirius.
That's great.
Isn't that clever? I mean, like, look, it's fairly obvious. R.A.B. Regulus Arcturus Black. We have the name's clarified. I don't think that's like, it's not J.K.'s best kept secret anyway. But the way they confirmed it, the effort, the thought, I love it. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, clever little fan community. Cool. So, last bit of trivia, Chris. We're, of course, onto my world-famous segment. Cars exist! Well, that was a good one.
Thanks, mate.
You put a lot of power into that. That car was that had a big engine. That car that you just did. Either that, or it was a very sick cat.
It's one of the two.
Oh God! Someone get that cat to a vet. Anyway, Hagrid's bike, the Sirius's bike. It's a 2009 Royal Enfield Bullet. The movie's set in 1990s. I don't know why, but it is.
Where's Hagrid keeping that bike? Because he's had that bike for 17 years at this point.
He likes his bike.
Yeah,
he's too big. Look, he's too big for a broom.
Yeah.
He's probably too big for flue powder, to be honest with you. He's not getting in the fireplace, is he?
I get it, but where's he keeping it? There's been no... this is a book point as well. There's no references to that bike, because actually, he could have got on that bike and ridden it off when he was being chased by auras at the end of... towards the end of Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, where does he keep it? It's definitely not in and around his hut, that's for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. But, he's not allowed to use magic himself because he got expelled from school. So he can't use... See, they've... Basically, Hagrid is not able to use any of this world's fast travel systems, and there are hundreds of them. He can't use apparition because he got expelled from school. He never learned it, never got his test. Fine. He can't use flue powder, too big to fit in the fireplaces. He can't get on a broom for obvious reasons. There was talk in one of the books of them having flying carpets, but again, I don't know how big they are. And whether he can fit on one of those or it can take his weight. He's obviously, he's a giant.
He does, doesn't he? Isn't it a carpet how they get across the water in the first book? when they're...
No, I don't believe so.
How does he get him across? Oh, is it a boat then? Maybe.
It's just a boat. Yeah, they're just in
Right,
boats.
okay.
Because remember, Colin Creevy's brother falls in.
No. I mean the water when he delivers Harry's letter to him. When they're on that.
You know what? They never clarify. He says, I used magic to get here, but now I've got you, I'm not supposed to use magic again, so we'll go back in the boat. They never clarify how he gets there. He says he uses magic, but he doesn't clarify how. But you're right. That proves he can use magic to travel. So what's with the bike? Good point.
But all I'm saying is, I'm not even disputing. It's fine. But it's been 17 years. Has he got a storage locker? Like, where's he keeping the bike? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, I agree.
That's another thing.
It's an anachronistic 2009 Royal Enfield Bullet.
Great, awesome. That's another thing where, if I'm making a TV show of this, I'm putting loads of like references into that. Knowing he has the bike at the end when he's fighting the Death Eaters, when he's fighting the Auras in Order of the Phoenix, I'm not having him run off out the gates. I'm having him getting on a fucking bike and flying off. I think that'd be a great visual.
Do it. Yeah. And then have someone go, isn't that the 2009 Royal Enfield Bullet? And someone go, that's not been invented yet, has it? Anyway,
yeah, because
the bus that...
Well, I suppose to be fair, the films have never given any indication of being set in the 90s when the books are meant to, so that's fine.
Well, yeah. Except for the bus that nearly hits them. That is a 1997 Volvo Olympian Northern Counties Palatine 1.
Oh, wow.
It's a long name for the thing, but that's what the bus is. But hilariously, once again, for another anachronistic thing, the Dursleys' car is a 2006 Vauxhall Vectra Mark II. So, there you go. Cars exist. Fuck it. We've done it. Right, Chris. Where's this going? Because let me tell you right now, right at the fucking bottom for me. It's number 7.
I can't defend this, Dan. Because, look,
what the fuck are you putting this above? What could you possibly be putting this above?
Look, if I'm doing best, then this, best to worst, I cannot deny that, the Mirror Thing, this is the worst film. But our ranking has always been favourites. Honestly, I'd watch this over the Half-Blood Prince again, so I'm putting it I'm putting it second to last. I really didn't like the Half-Blood Prince.
So for anyone wondering about our rankings thus far, from worst to best, Chris's is 6, 7, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5. Mm-hmm. And mine is 7, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 2.
Yeah.
So far, we're pretty similar in the middle. 3, 2, and 1 are both kind of floating around. Oh, no, you got 2. No, because I've got 2 first, sorry. 5. I got 5 first. I don't know, yeah, like 4, 1, 2, and 3. The middle's kind of...
Oh, have you changed it?
2 for...
You had 2 first, but you were umming and ahhing last week about changing it to 5. Are you now saying is 5 officially first, or are you talking about my list?
I think 2 is still first. 2 is still first. But I am still umming and ahhing about that. I am and ahhing about that every time we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I just... You know what? I know this is stupid. I know this is petty. I just fucking really dislike how Half-Blood Prince looks visually, and it just really puts me off it.
That's fair.
I really struggled to forgive it for that, let alone all the stuff we talked about last week.
But I think mostly like we did say that despite ourselves the story mostly functions, and like there's all we do I still stand by that a lot of the even though it doesn't have a point or go anywhere, like all the kids running around getting into love triangles and stuff is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Underserved. So for me, that element of it puts it already above. And also, yeah, I just think this movie literally fails for me on every level. Whereas at least I feel like I could find some stuff that I thought was okay about the last one.
Yeah, but as good as the lake sequence is very good in Half-Blood Prince, and I love Harry on the Felix potion and Daniel Radcliffe's acting in that, but nothing's as beautiful as the animation. There's not a moment that compares to Hermione and the Snatcher. So yeah, I really just fucking hate how it looks. So yeah, I know it's nuts because I've been way more critical of this film than I was Half-Blood Prince, but I still would put this above Half-Blood Prince.
That's fair. That's fair. I understand.
There we go.
Yeah.
But you are right.
So we both got a different first and last now, right, at the moment. Because I still reserve my right to change my mind at any point about 2 and 5. So I've got Chamber above Phoenix right now.
Is our biggest...
every week I think about that.
Is our biggest discrepancy Chamber? As in it's the furthest... Chamber is the furthest away from each other in the lists?
Because you've got Chamber third.
Yeah, whereas you've got it first. Is that the... That seems...
Yeah, no, we have... Oh, no, you're right. It's our biggest discrepancy right now is where we rank Chamber. Everything else is within one space of where the other one has it, except for Chamber, which is 2 spaces.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, you're right. That is interesting. So yeah, I've got Chamber first. You've got Phoenix first. I've got this one last. Deathly Hallows Part 1. You've got Half-Blood Prince last.
Isn't it weird? Because I'm not a big... cinematography is a word that I often chuck out and think, have I used that word correctly? Like, I'm not a big cinematography guy, but isn't it weird that I rank Half-Blood Prince low for what I perceive to be bad visuals, bad cinematography, and Azkaban, like, second from top for good cinematography and visuals? Like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, like it seems to really have an impact on your feelings on these films. And I think that's fair though. It's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of the process and how the movie comes across.
It's just interesting because it's not something I, you know what I mean, often go to when we're reviewing stuff on our other podcasts and stuff. It's just interesting.
Agreed.
Oh.
Agreed. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Sorry this was another fucking diabolically long one. I am sorry. This shouldn't be, but it's a bad movie. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. You can get us in all the usual places. I'm on Twitter at Dan Doolan. Chris is at CBillingham with 2 M's. As I mentioned earlier, patreon.com/nothingbutstaticuk to hear the second part to this episode. the discussion of the second part of this movie. Right now, you can go hear it a week early. If you're on Spotify, whatever. Obviously, if you're already listening to this on Patreon, then I'm very sorry to tell you that you can't do that. But if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or YouTube, you can do that. You can also interact with us in many, many ways, such as mail@nothingButStatic.co.uk. You can drop a comment on the YouTube version of this video. The YouTube channel is, of course, youtube.com/nothingButStaticUK. You can also give us a like or a review on the podcast platform of your choice. We appreciate that. You can tell a friend, we like that. Or you can just listen and be very passive about the whole thing and just think we're fine. That's also good. Or, final option, you can just think, well, this is really shit and that we don't know what we're talking about and that you disagree with all of our points. And you can hate listen. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I think better things to do with your time than listen to people you don't agree with talk. But you know what? Who am I to judge your life decisions?
No, but if anyone wants to give, not hate listen or just kind of throwing stuff at the wall comments, but I'm definitely up for hearing the other side. If you love this movie, if you disagree with some of our criticisms, let us know, comment, whatever. But let us know your thoughts as to why. Because we don't
say it enough on here because obviously it's fun to be like, oh, it's a dumb bad movie, it's made by dumb people, it's stupid and I hate it, and like you make these like hyperbole comments or whatever to like for the sake of like comedy or entertainment value or whatever. But the reality is obviously all of this stuff comes automatically, I think, imbued with the premise of, for us, this did not work for us for these reasons. It doesn't ever preclude the possibility that somebody might not see those, even people who agree with those issues, not find them to be too big of a problem. I've had that moment many times where I've been like, I enjoyed this movie, and someone's like, but what about this? And I'm like, I agree, that is a problem, and it is an imperfection in this movie. It was not enough to bring it down in my estimation, and that's fine. And
nor do we also diminish the enormity of the task of everyone involved in this, and adapting these mammoth 600, 800 page books. Like, there's that as well. We've given Steve Knowles a lot of shit on here. Steve Knowles cared. Like, if anything, I think he cared a bit too much about the books, and that potentially is part of the reasoning for a lot of our criticisms. But it's not in any way personal. Like, and fully.
Yeah. I would agree. Like, we often we've often talked about like who's at fault in this, but yeah, well, I'm not attacking them. At this, I can make jokes about how that their choices are dumb or whatever, but in reality, I'm not coming down on these people as human beings. Like they were trying to do their job. I don't agree with what the choices they made and the things they did, but like, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
there you go.
Cool. So we did a thing. Come back next week for another thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Come back next week if you're listening on Patreon. Also, come back next week. I've been Chris Milligan.
I've been Dan Toolan.
And this review from the Wizarding World has been rewound.
Wizarding World is dumb. Goodbye, everyone.
Oh yeah. Look at how little time he wastes when he's hungry on this bit.
Dumb.
When I was hungry, I had to listen to a 5-minute rant about the Wizarding World. But when you're hungry, it's just dumb.
You can extend this bit if you want. Have you got a counterpoint to my concern, my criticism of that?
No, because I'm pretty sure the next time we record, the timings are working out that you have a chance to eat before and I don't. So no, I'm not going to extend it because next week I'm going to be the one that's hungry.
Oh, you shouldn't have given me that ammunition, mate. That's
it is dumb.
That's delicious. And literally delicious. I'm going to make sure I eat right before we record.
I'd be quite early to eat, but I think you will have the ability to eat more than me.
Yeah, well, I could have a late lunch.
Yeah, that's fair.
I could have because we're recording at 5:00. I could skip lunch at sort of 1-2, have that at 4, knowing that I'm going to have my tea at like 9. Push everything back a couple hours.
9.
I can do that.
Can we not aim for 8:30?
But I've got to make food. I've got to like I can't just step out of the podcast and have a meal. So if we start at 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, that's 3 hours. That's what these have all been roughly. I'm coming out at 8. I'm not probably eating until 8:30, 9. That's probably accurate.
Can we say now that and I'm aware we're elongating this bit, but can we say now that we're going to try and be shorter for Fantastic Beasts?
Yes, please. Yeah, I feel like I will. I feel like we will be because I just don't feel like we're gonna have as much detail to look at. No. I think what's frustrating about these movies is like the devil is in the detail. Really, I think the reason these movies have gotten away so long with like being considered pretty good, even though they're not, is that actually like when you boil them down and you pick at the details, it all really unravels very quickly. There's a real consistent thread of poor choices. But I think with the Fantastic Beasts films, the problems are much more overarching and a little easier to discuss without having to go down into the nitty-gritty because the problems aren't small mechanical cogs that have broken. They're big, giant... The machine doesn't have fucking power, so it's not turning on sort of problems. So that it's much easier to diagnose and identify and discuss, I think. We could be wrong. Hey, maybe we're going to get into the weeds with that too, but I suspect not.
I'd agree. Anyway, Wizarding World. Bad title. See you later.
Bye.